Okay. Do I have to wait for the lady to tell me it's okay? Suri? So Suri's good with us? We're good to go? Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, October 20th, and I say this every meeting. I don't know where the years went. It's gone. It just went by, and I wish I could slow it up, but I can't. But it is October 30th, 6:30. I want to welcome everyone to the Village Council, Royal Palm Beach Village Council regular meeting. I'll ask everyone to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Diane, please let the record show that all members of council are present.
Yes, Mayor, I will.
Well, no, they are not present.
Oh, no.
I'm missing Jan.
Dan.
With the exception of Jan, everyone
Yes,
is
Mayor.
present. Did anybody hear? Stop it. Ray, did you hear anything from her? No? That's right. I think she told me that last week. Let the record show that Jan did inform us last week that she would be out of town this evening, therefore she would not be attending. So therefore we are all present. Wow. It's going to be four of us. Anyway, we have a very interesting meeting this evening. I'm glad to have everyone here. And all of you may or may not have heard that Palm Beach County has put on the ballot item that they're asking the voters to vote on for a $200 million bond issue that the voters will pay for if they approve it. It's a housing bond. And I'd rather me try to go into more detail. We have with us this evening Mr. Skip Miller, who's the vice chair of the Housing Leadership Council regarding this bond issue. And where'd he go? He's going to. Oh, come on down. Come on down, Skip, and begin your presentation. We thank you for coming tonight, and I hope that this is informational for those who are here and all of our citizens out there. And I invite the council to ask questions, and I will open this up for public comment if anyone else from the public here wants to comment as well.
Show my screen. I'm not sure. I'm not good at technology. So tell me what I need to press. Oh, okay.
Here it is.
And how do I move it again? This way? Great. Okay, ready now. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Skip Miller. I am the vice chair of the Housing Leadership Council of Palm Beach County. And what I'd like to do is make a very brief presentation describing the proposed housing bond, and hopefully, if you haven't decided which way you're going to vote yet, persuade you to vote for it. So, where we start is about 3 years ago, the county ordered a Palm Beach County housing needs assessment, and that needs assessment documented the severe housing crisis in Palm Beach County and showed a net deficit of 20,000 units for essential workers between 2010 and 2019. This shortage has been getting worse over a period of many years. Since 2012, we have built about 2,000 units each year, less than what we need to keep up with demand. That means now we are about 20,000 units short of where we really need to be to accommodate the housing needs for our essential workers. This is the language that's going to be on the ballot. I'm not going to read it. I doubt you guys can read it. I will tell you, it's unfortunately it's drafted in a way that's legal, but it's very poorly drafted in the sense that it makes no sense if you read it. And that's because there are legal requirements that have to go on a ballot question. You're limited to 75 words. You have to include certain information. And so this doesn't come close to telling the story. But what the bond issue does, it's going to approve, if we're asking the voters to approve a bond issue to increase the supply of affordable and workforce housing in Palm Beach County. The bonds will be repaid from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property in the county, and that includes the municipalities. The amount that can be issued is for up to $200 million, and the bonds can provide funding subsidy for households earning up to 140% of area median income, which is $128,000 per year. So this would be available to households earning anywhere between $0 and $128,000 per year. Let's see, I think I went too fast. Bear with me just a minute. Did the ballot question. Okay, this is how the bond issue will translate into units. Bond issue will encourage developers to build housing with units for households making up to 140% of area median income. The proceeds of the bonds will be used to offer low interest rate loans to builders who will produce homes and apartments that are affordable to our essential workers. It will be paired with other sources such as private loans, fee waivers, and other federal, state, and local programs. So if you are a renter, the benefits of this program are obvious. You're going to benefit in two ways. If you are a household that's fortunate enough to get a rent-restricted unit, your rent's going to go way down from where it is today. You're going to start saving hundreds of dollars a month. And even if you're not one of the lucky few, by virtue of all these extra apartment units being built, that should increase the supply, which ought to moderate the price, and hopefully that will keep the prices from going up more than they would otherwise. So on the multifamily side, that's going to be the benefit. If you already own your own home, which a lot of you do, the benefit's going to be very tangible, but in a different way. I'm sure you've all seen help wanted signs and signs of restaurants and businesses that are closed. The reason they're closed is because they can't find workers, and the reason they can't find workers is because the workers cannot afford to live in Palm Beach County. A study by the Tourist Development Council showed that low wages and high housing costs were the primary reasons why workers leave retail and service jobs. And you see this everywhere. You go into a restaurant and you see that a whole section is dark because they don't have servers. The pharmacy that used to be open 7 days a week is now only open 6 days a week, and it closes at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Children are going to school, and half the time they have a substitute teacher. These are all reflecting back to the fact that the cost to live in Palm Beach County is just so high, higher than most other places in the county. If these shortages continue, they will affect the ability of law enforcement, hospitals, and fire and rescue departments to be adequately staffed, which will make our communities less safe and may result in increased response times and possibly higher property insurance rates. Also, if households are spending too much of their income on housing, they may not have enough money for other necessities like health care, and they won't have disposable income, which means less business for our local stores and restaurants. And many of you who thought you were going to be empty nesters have to deal with your adult children moving back home because they can't afford the cost of housing in Palm Beach County either. So, we want people to be able to afford to live here so they can work here. Putting money towards the problem is not the whole answer, but in this situation, it will be an important step in addressing the severe supply-demand imbalance. We must add units, and we want the units that we add to be affordable to those performing essential jobs, those people who make our community a great place to live. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. I'm going to show just how severe the problem is right now. And we're just going to have two examples. The first example is a teacher that's making the average teacher salary of $51,400. If you follow the standard calculation that a household can typically afford to pay 3 times their annual income in housing, that teacher could afford a house costing about $155,000. That product does not exist in Palm Beach County anymore, nowhere. And our teacher is even priced out of the average rent. So if I go to the second example is a sales clerk making $18 per hour. The other test that we use, and you've probably heard this one before, is that a household should not be spending more than 30% of its income on housing. So that clerk can afford to pay a rent of about $910 a month. But our average rent in the central part of the county is about $1,700 a month. It's much higher in the North and South County and for larger apartment complexes. So our average person is making only about half of what they truly need to make to afford to live in Palm Beach County. So this is how the bond issue is going to work. Bond proceeds will be used to provide low interest rate subordinate gap financing that replaces more expensive debt and equity required to build units. In return for the less expensive funding, a substantial percentage of the units being built will be sold or rented to qualified households for a below market sales price of rent for an extended period of time, somewhere between 15 and 50 years. So, if I'll give you an example, I'm going to give you two examples. On the multifamily side, if we provide the developer low interest rate financing and the county's proposing the interest rate on the loans they make from the bond proceeds will be anywhere between 0 and 3% a year. So, for example, if they make a loan to a developer at 2% a year, and that loan for $2 million replaces equity or expensive financing that developer would otherwise have to get, and we're estimating that in today's world, that might cost the developer 12 to 20% a year, the developer is going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in interest costs. And because these loans will be subordinate, it will make it easier for the developer to get senior debt. And for nonprofits and smaller developers that don't have deep pockets, they might not be able to finance their development at all without this subordinate gap financing. In exchange for the money that the developer is going to save, they will have to agree to set aside a certain percentage of their units for affordable and workforce housing. How much they set aside and what income category the set-aside units will be provided to will depend on how each developer submits their application for funding to the county. The county will not tell developers what to do. Rather, the county will offer incentives to developers that will provide a greater per unit subsidy the lower the income unit level that is targeted. On the single-family side, it's going to work a little bit differently. The money will be used to provide a loan to the developer that is equal to the difference between the cost for the developer to build the house or condominium and the sales price that the developer can get. When the unit is completed and ready to be sold, the county, the state, and other funders will provide additional funding sources that make up that gap to the developer. In essence, on the single-family side, it will be like a revolving loan fund. As the house is sold to an end buyer, the loan to the developer is repaid, and the funds will be available to make another loan, even after all the bond money is spent. On the multifamily side, because the loan has to be repaid over time, the bond money will go out, and then in a few years it will start coming back in as that loan starts to be repaid, and again will be available to make new loans. County staff is developing a bond allocation process to be considered and approved by the County Commission. There will be separate competitive processes for single-family and multifamily developments that will establish the criteria by which the county will evaluate and rate requests for bond funding. Now, we want to make sure that everyone understands that the bond issue does not change the zoning and land use approval process for residential units. The county and the cities will still need to go through whatever land use and zoning process they have to go through today to approve the units. If a development is on the unincorporated area, it will have to be approved by the county. If a development is in a city, it will have to be approved by that city, and we will not be bypassing the normal approval process. Where will these units go, people ask? Theoretically, these developments could go anywhere in the county, but ideal locations will be on major thoroughfares and near employment centers that can handle additional density. Developments will be near what we call transit-oriented development, which will be near Tri-Rail and Brightline stations, and major bus lines, which will reduce the cost of units in those areas because people will be less likely to need cars, so parking requirements will be less. There are also areas that provide opportunities for what we call adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is where you take, for example, a vacant shopping center or another underutilized commercial use and convert it to residential. We also think that the bond issue will provide an opportunity for housing in the Glades, where it's very much needed and so much of the housing is substandard. But at the end of the day, because it's the county's bond issue, the county will come up with this allocation process and set priorities for where they would like to see the bond money spent. And they're in the process of developing those criteria. Now comes maybe the most important part, which is how much is this going to cost? As we said before, it's an ad valorem bond issue, which means that it will be paid for by a separate levy of ad valorem taxes that will go on everyone's tax bill, everyone, not just the unincorporated area, but property in the cities as well. The county has calculated that the additional annual cost will be $4.36 per $100,000 of assessed value. For what the county has determined to be the average homeowner, the cost will be about $14 per year. If we are able to achieve a leverage ratio of 10 to 1, which is not out of the question, for that $14 a year, you are ultimately going to get about $2 billion worth of new housing. Much of that will be affordable to essential workers. The bond issue is part of a larger plan. We call it Housing for All plan for Palm Beach County. The plan has 4 focus areas: funding and financing, planning and regulatory reform, neighborhood revitalization, and racial equity. Through the measures that we are going to hopefully accomplish in these 4 focus areas, we think we will be able to accomplish our goal of creating 20,000 new units of affordable and workforce housing over the next 10 years. I just for a minute want to talk about the protections that are built into the plan to make sure that the program is successful and that it accomplishes what it's intended to accomplish. Landlords who participate in the program will be required to annually certify that they meet their legal obligations to charge fair and affordable rent amounts. Homeowners with financing under the program will be required to provide the county a notice of sale. This will enable the county to ensure that when an affordable or workforce program house is resold, it will continue to be affordable to the new buyer. All loans made with bond proceeds will be protected by a recorded deed restriction, and the Housing Leadership Council will provide oversight and monitor program progress towards our goals. And again, I want to thank you for your time this evening, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you very much. I think that what I'd like to do is, before I start taking comments and questions from members on council, I'd like to open this up for the public. Anyone who's here, or Ray, if we have any hands raised, who'd like to ask a question or comment on your presentation. So is anyone here? Now would be the time to come on up if you have questions or comments. I thought one of you, 2 of you would want to come up and ask some questions, but that's okay. I see a hand raised. Yes. Come up to the mic and introduce yourself. Yeah. This is for the record.
Hi,
yeah.
my name is Luz Delgadillo, and I just want to know if you have a couple of examples of that type of housing in Palm Beach already that are being displayed or being used.
Well, we don't have the program yet. It's going to be hopefully funded with the proceeds of the bonds. I'm really not sure what programs, what apartment complexes in this area were built with county funding, but they really look like any other apartment complex. You from the amenities and the way the units are built, you wouldn't notice the difference between something that would be funded out of the bond issue and something that's done conventionally.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going once? Come up, sir.
My name is Radcliffe Brown. I'm a resident in Royal Palm Beach. I went to the website and I kind of looked at the program or the plan, and I just wanted to kind of know what is the real goal behind the bond issue. Is it to give the homeowner or the purchasers relief, or is it just another way to make it easier for developers to build something that's more affordable? I guess my concern is that I know we've seen county plans where it said we're supposed to have affordable housing and everything else, but in the long run, the developer gets their money, but the public and the taxpayers don't really benefit from it.
Again, a certain percentage of the units will have to be set aside for people, for essential workers. And so the people that get those units will definitely get a benefit because their rents are going to go down significantly, and we're hoping that that's going to be 20,000 units over 10 years. So
I think the operative word there is hoping.
Well,
let me say, I went and I looked at even some of the plans and the developments, and it says how many are to be allocated for affordable housing. And when you look at the percentage of those compared to what developers build, it is relatively small. It's like a drop in the bucket. Mm-hmm. And so my concern is that it sounds great, but in implementation, is it really going to get us the desired result?
Well, we're going to do our best, and I will. You raise a very good point, and you have the state legislature to blame, as always.
Let's
They passed-
let's not start pointing fingers. Okay.
I'm going to tell you the state legislature passed a law a couple years ago that basically says that if you require a developer to include affordable and workforce housing in their development, you have to make it worth their while. You have to give them the ability to build enough additional products so that they make the same amount of money that they would have made if they didn't have to set aside those units. And that really ties the hands of local government that might otherwise like to do exactly what you're talking about.
On Wall Street, we would have called that a poison pill.
Okay, I'll give other people an opportunity.
And if you want to talk to me after I'm done, I'm happy to do that.
That's fine. I guess just my point is that I've seen, this is like a replay of a movie that we've seen before. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else here who would like to make comments? Now's the time? No? Ray, you have anyone with their hand raised? Diane, did we get any advance comments on this particular? Well, no? Okay. I'd like to open it up for comments and questions as the members of council. So go ahead.
I don't know. Thank you very much, by the way, for coming out and explaining it to us. I think for me, it was particularly helpful. And, as having a son who's in college, and I don't want him coming back to the home. Hopefully there'll be something that he can afford when he gets done.
But he will.
I'm not gonna dispute you on that. But thinking through the entire thing and the way it's set up, and I don't know if it's a question for you or something Keith can answer, but is this something that has to be done by a bond, or can the county, if they wanted to, just set up this program without putting it to the voters? Or is it just something where they have a policy and they say, okay, we want to put the credit of the county in this and we want to get the people sign off on it?
So that's a very interesting question. The county had the option, instead of a general obligation bond, of raising the money in a different way. But that other way would only involve revenue streams that are primarily generated in the unincorporated area.
Okay, so not sharing the wealth for
Correct. So the
everybody
county-
in the county, it would just
Correct.
hit the
Correct.
county pockets harder.
Because the units can be anywhere in the county, including in the cities.
Right.
County felt that it was only fair that everyone in the county share the cost of it.
Okay, so for it to be fair for everyone, this had to go on the ballot is just basically
Correct.
what my question.
Correct.
Okay, thanks so much.
Very good question.
Who's next? Go ahead. You?
You? Okay. All right. Well, then let me just start off with something that I've heard and something I've actually experienced. So watching the Sadowski Fund and the way that it's operated over the last decade or more, actually, which is to be a source of funding for something other than the affordable housing or housing that I think it was originally intended. I had heard this was one of the reasons that the county felt that they needed a dependable revenue source, which the Sadowski Fund, in the hands of the state legislature, is not. It can be any number from, I don't know if they've ever gotten down to zero, but
Yeah, they have.
okay, and to 300 and some odd million, I think that was distributed last year. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit to that?
Actually, if they had fully funded Sadowski last year, the number would have been more like 500 something million. And I probably would not be standing here asking for support of the bond issue if the legislature, there they go again, had not rated the Sadowski Fund probably every year for the last 12 to 15 years. And 2 years ago, they permanently reduced the share of, they cut in half the share of the dock stamp taxes that go to affordable housing. And in exchange for that, they said, we're not going to raid you anymore. And then this session, they still raided it. So it's not a reliable income stream. And that's probably the primary reason why the county felt the need to do this.
And that's what I heard, and it does make sense. And those that like to have fun
Now,
with
let
this
me add-
idea. They refer to it as a trust fund, but can you really
It's
trust
not,
it?
yeah. Let me also add that the reason that I'm here, as opposed to some from the county, is the legislature, again, in its infinite wisdom, has laws that prohibit the county from endorsing its own referendum.
Right. I understand that.
Or marketing it, in other words.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're kind of carrying the torch for them.
And so, following that comment, with my understanding is, therefore, I think most of the people on the is it the Housing Leadership Council, if I got that right, are members of the business community. Is that a fair statement?
No, you're thinking, the Housing Leadership Council is really some business people, nonprofits, just average citizens, basically, people
Okay.
who have an interest in housing. The Hometown Housing Trust, which is the group that was formed to promote the bond issue, I think that's the group you're thinking of that has gotten
Mostly
most of its funding from
business and that kind of
large
thing.
companies and real estate developers.
Right, and there were concerns expressed, I think, in a post. There was something written up about something called a link fee. Are you familiar with that?
There's something called a linkage fee.
I'm sorry, linkage fee.
So,
You're right.
so a linkage, and that has really nothing to do with the bond issue, but just since you asked, a linkage fee is a fee if I'm building a commercial building or an industrial building, a linkage fee is like an impact fee in that I would have to pay a fee to offset the cost of housing my potential employees. The reason I think that's not gone forward is it really works against the county's desire to bring new business into the community. If you're offering tax incentives
Right.
on the one hand, and you're taking the tax incentives away by imposing a linkage fee on the other hand, it's net zero, and the linkage fee can't be used to alleviate the crisis we already have. It can only be used
Going forward.
against the demand for the new. It's an impact fee, and it works like
Right.
an impact fee.
Right. Okay. Well, and I think the idea was that to address affordable housing was another way to incentivize. And
It is, but like I said, we're 20,000 units behind the 8 ball, and a linkage fee won't do anything to help us get caught up.
okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Selena?
Thank you very much for coming down. It's nice to see you in this neck of the woods. You had mentioned several times supply and demand, and that always is what the deterring factor or the determining factor is for cost. So at what point are we going to have enough of a supply that's going to lower the demand need, which is then going to translate into funding?
Well, again,
Or cost of
we
units.
think we're 20,000 units short,
And it's going to take you the 10 years to build the 20 units?
and we think it's over the next 10 years we will be able to build the 20,000. But that's 20,000 affordable and workforce units.
Right. That's
so it
not
could be a total of 80,000 units.
right.
But we think we're 20,000. We think if it's 80,000, we think we need 20,000 more than that again to get caught up. What's the tipping point? It depends on so many things. I mean, the economy in general, construction cost, whether these units are built by for-profit developers or not-for-profits. I mean, if you could get a not-for-profit like Habitat
Right.
involved in this in a major way, they don't have to make any money. They just have to break even. So, all of the things being equal, they're going to be able to provide a product for less money. So there's just a whole lot of factors. But we feel like the more new units we can get up and in line, the more of a positive effect that'll have.
So if there were 20,000 units short today, by the time, let's say this passes, everything comes into effect, at what point, because then that number is going to keep increasing exponentially until we actually start building these units and people moving in. So 20,000 is today. What do you anticipate over, and what is the life of the bond, by the way? Is it
The bond is 20 years,
20 years,
but
okay.
that doesn't really matter. What really matters is how long the developer has to repay the loan of the bond proceeds, and how long the income restrictions stay in place.
okay? So
Because
then,
the bond money is going to recycle.
And so then do you have a idea of how many units you really are going to need 10 years from now by the time this goes? So if you need 20,000 today,
Well, the idea is that the, the number of conventional units that will be built will keep pace with the demand, and we'll have this 20,000 additional units of workforce. So that's really the idea.
okay. So you're hedging future bets on
Yeah,
what you'll need.
yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of unknowns, and 20,000 was. I mean, we actually think we need a lot more than 20,000, but that's the number that we thought could realistically be approved by the voters, and that would make a big dent.
Okay. And then, and I know you're just the messenger, so I know I'm asking you a lot of questions you may not have all of that for. You did touch on it a little bit because we did vote last year, I think, or the year before, that minimum wage should go up to $15 an hour, so this will help take care of this. And you did use the slide example of if you're making $18 an hour, that's where you are. So then do you foresee that that's going to increase? Because now you've told me that $15 an hour is not going to be able to afford this.
Well, you have to remember, not everyone is a one-person household.
Right.
So if my $18 an hour sales clerk is living with another $18 an hour sales clerk, now, because I said they're making about half of what they need.
Right.
Well, now between
right
the two of
there.
them at $36 an hour, they're right where they need to be. So it depends on how many are single, and how many are willing to share an apartment or a house with someone else.
Would these units then, or whatever the developer would set aside, would they be of the same size and quality of the rest in that development? Or is that up to the?
I would assume so, because
Okay.
that's the way it's been with every other
Okay.
program that the county has.
All right. And then my last question was, with the school district referendum coming up now, they want more money now to pay teachers more money. So as an example is saying is that they can't afford it. Well, now you're already asking taxpayers to agree to that, to pay teachers more. Now we're going to pay, this. So do you foresee that will be a clash between the two, or do you find that we have to choose one or the other, or is there one
Well,
better we
you
should
cer-
choose?
You certainly don't have to choose one or the other, and I would certainly encourage everyone to vote for increasing teacher salaries and things like that. I mean, we wish they weren't on the same ballot, but we didn't have that option. We're glad the county was also considering a water bond issue that would also be general obligation bonds, and we're glad they decided not to put that one on the ballot.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have some thoughts that I'd like to share with you, but I'd like to preface it by saying I'd like an opportunity to come and address this leadership council. That they're the ones that put this together, right? The concept.
Well, there was actually a housing steering committee.
Yeah.
This is unfortunately, this is a longer story than you're going to want to hear.
Well,
But the housing steering committee was formed about 5 years ago to put together a housing summit, which some of you may remember. It was at the convention center. I think there were like 500 people there, and we had people that presented different ideas, and that steering committee was a cross section. There were county people were on it, private people, nonprofit people. So after we had the summit, the county asked the steering committee, could you develop a housing plan? And so it really wasn't the Housing Leadership Council. The Housing Leadership Council sort of guided it, but it's really the steering committee. And I'll have to say we probably made a mistake of not, having specific, you are a member of the Housing Steering Committee. We kind of opened it up to the world. And so whoever got on our calls, we had monthly calls, kind of became the Housing Steering Committee. So it's probably a group of about 50 or 60 people.
wow.
And we meet monthly by Zoom. And, that is the entity that developed the housing plan. The bond issue was one element of the housing plan, and that really became a project of the county commission at some point.
It would seem to me that any plan is not going anywhere without a funding mechanism, which is the bond issue. But I guess my question is, who has ownership for the rules on how this concept of how this money is going to be used.
The county, it's the county's bond issue.
Not your
No,
housing.
no, the county Department of Economic Sustainability, whatever it's
So
called.
you're saying they're the ones that came up with the concept that said, you know what, let's do what we've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, trying to motivate, all right, and incentivize the private development sector to build these units that we need built for affordable, that could be affordable. So this, you're telling me that they said, let's say the same approach.
No.
No, let me finish.
Okay.
You're doing it is the same approach. I stood here and heard you say the whole purpose of this is to give low cost loans to the marketplace, right? So that will incentivize them to set aside a certain number of units that they build to fit this requirement. We're doing the same mistake that we've been doing for the last 10 and 15 years. We're not thinking of a new approach and a different approach. You know, developers, they're in business to make money, all right? And I understand that. That's capitalism, that's a society. But for what we're trying to do here, and you want to use taxpayer dollars, I don't think the approach should be doing the same thing we've been doing, incentivizing the private sector and then standing back and expecting them to come to fruition what you're trying to accomplish. And I'd like to know who I need to talk to say, I've got some ideas on a totally different approach that we should be using to do this. I'm not going to spend all night talking about that here, but I'd like to get in front of the people who to get them to change the concept of what you're doing, because all we're doing is we're doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. It has not yielded the results that we want. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying this is what the outcome has been, and we're going to have the same outcome if we continue to do the same thing. So
The person to talk to, unless you want to talk to the county commission, and you certainly talk to them, would be Jonathan Brown at the Department of Environmental Sustainability, and he is the one that's overseeing the effort to put this allocation plan
ultimately,
together.
I will talk to the county commission, but I'll give him the opportunity of having a conversation with him first before going right to the commissioners.
No, you should
Okay?
talk. You should
So
talk.
if you can facilitate that, I appreciate
I
it.
will be happy
Okay.
to get the two of you together.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the reason I'm suggesting Jonathan is he oversees all of the county's housing programs,
That's
not
fine.
just what's going to happen with the bond issue.
Then he's, okay. Then, go ahead, Richard. Yeah.
Oh, I think the mayor made a strong case for why not to vote for this, but this is something that's on the ballot in a few weeks, correct?
November 8th, yes.
Okay. So,
Things have to happen fast.
okay, thank you.
Because
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
I'm looking at this from the big picture standpoint in terms of what we've accomplished and the approach we've used, and it's clear that has not been satisfactory. We have not gotten anywhere near the results. And I think it's the wrong concept and the wrong mindset to think that we're going to incentivize the open market to solve our problem of us determining we want to create a certain number of units. I have some approaches, specific things that I think we should do, a very different direction, but I want to talk to the right people about it.
Okay.
Okay?
So let me, you haven't told me what you are suggesting, but
I'll tell you after the meeting if you want, because I want to have these conversations. I want to give the people who have responsibility for this a chance to deal with it before I put it out in the press.
that's
okay.
fair. But let me respond in a couple ways. One of the reasons that this is the structure is because of the leveraging feature. Because the county, instead of the county having to fund the entire cost,
No,
they're only funding maybe 5 to 10% of the
that
cost.
is, I dispute,
county-
I dispute that rationale and that the way of looking at the numbers. Let's not get into this now.
Okay, all right. Well, so that
I want to talk to
I
the
just
people I
wanted
need
to
to talk
point
to,
that out, and
okay?
then the second thing, like I mentioned before, the legislature has kind of tied your hands, and there are a lot of things that you might like to do that
I
you
have
can't.
some concepts that none of that will affect us.
I'd love to have-
if we embrace a very different way of looking at how to fix this problem. I'll leave it at that.
I would love to have the conversation with you.
I want to do this.
And
We
matter of
gotta
fact,
do
I'd
this.
rather talk to you first before you talk to Jonathan Brown.
Fine with me.
Great.
I'll talk to who I need to talk to.
Okay.
Listen, I appreciate you being here tonight, and I don't know if you expected to have these number of questions, but this is an important topic to our community as a whole, Palm Beach County, and I've talked to so many citizens over the years who are frustrated because there's been a lot of talk, but the results have not been what they need to be, and to now make this ask of the citizens, all right? and saying we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, which is let's get the open markets to solve this problem. I just think it's absolutely the wrong direction, and I hope to talk to the right people to get some new ideas on the table for them.
Again,
Okay.
happy to talk to you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from council? We thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you
really
for having me.
appreciate
Appreciate it. Take
Okay.
care, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. We're now ready for reports, and Jeff, you're at the end, so we'll start with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, speaking of affordable housing, Florida League of Cities policy committees, one of the committees is the Transportation and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, which includes affordable housing. And that's why I posed the questions about Sadowski funding. That from year to year, as we pose the priorities that we think the legislator ought to be looking at in the coming year from a Florida League of Cities, 411 municipalities point of view, this comes up again and again and again. And it does smack a little bit of what the mayor was talking about, doing the same thing over and over again. So hopefully there's going to be a break in this. I don't know, but the good news from Florida League of Cities point of view is that their advocacy group will be pushing affordable housing as number one priority for this particular committee, and number two right behind it is transportation. And he mentioned, I think Skip mentioned in passing, that there's a connection there, and it's a powerful connection, because you can do affordable housing and not have affordable transportation, and you don't have a solution. You have an unintended consequence that's going to arise. So we're pushing both of those really, really hard through these Florida League of Cities policy statements that'll be finalized in December and then adopted by the Legislative Committee for the Florida League of Cities. Hopefully it'll make a difference. I know one thing for sure: if you don't step up, it won't go. So we'll continue to push on that. We see that as important as well. TPA meeting this morning, I sat in for the mayor as the alternate, and we spent the first 45 minutes talking about a very unfortunate accident that took place downtown West Palm Beach. You may have read about it, heard about it, and that was a vehicle that got caught on the tracks between gates that had closed around it. And if you think about the experience on some of these railroad tracks, especially the CSX line, the freight lines, you have 3 tracks, and that's a lot of distance. And so as traffic begins to flow, depending on how fast people make that turn, if you're in that lane and there's any delay, you can find yourself on those tracks with the gates coming down on both sides. Unfortunately, that happened, and the vehicle was hit, and a woman died from that accident. The discussion this morning was about, well, what can be done to alert people to oncoming trains, even beyond the gate coming down, and certainly before you get yourself trapped. There were a lot of ideas put on the table, but I think most importantly, someone suggested that what we ought to be doing is putting out the information about what if you find yourself in that position? What should you do? And so there's a lot of energy behind this, and one of the reasons is because unfortunately the wife of the director of the legal aid group,
Legal aid. Yeah.
right, was the victim. She's well known, and like unfortunately a lot of things, to get people's attention, sometimes situations like this can actually help with that. So hopefully that will result in some serious PSA work and some serious communications with folks. And for those, if you think about it, it could be any of us. So whether we live down near the tracks or not, we drive across them. And so this is something important, and it was worth a 45-minute conversation, I think. There was also a presentation from the TPA staff on the local initiatives, transportation alternatives, and state road modification program. Additional funds are going to become available this year through a number of things: ARPA funding from feds, and also bipartisan infrastructure law. So we're going to see an increase in these different categories, and we've been very competitive, and we've gotten grants from that program on a number of occasions, and I know we have some ideas that might very well be successful applications as well. Clinton Forbes, the director of Palm Tran, gave an update on a couple of initiatives. The main one he was talking about was demand flexible service that is kind of a pilot program in the Glades area called Go Glades. It's been really successful. It's been in place now for, 2018, I think is when it started. And it's grown in popularity, 26% the last year, as a matter of fact, with 8,600 people as regular riders over the past month. Even more importantly, probably, is that their satisfaction rating is like 4.9 stars. So they're doing something right. The model itself is interesting. It's small bus kind of a thing, a shuttle bus, and it's on a demand basis that you can either just call a number and request it to your location, or they now have an app that's being used more and more, a lot like Uber and Lyft, and it seems to be working well. Most importantly, it seems to be a model that can help us with the first mile, last mile challenges of trying to deal with making mass transit more attractive, making it more effective, and hopefully having a positive effect on the traffic congestion that we'll see increasing if we don't do something like this, speaking of doing the same thing over and over again, right? And another presentation that was, I do want to mention that Mr. Forbes proudly announced that 2 of their employees, 2 bus drivers, were identified as bus drivers of the year by FDOT. So that's some good quality folks driving our buses, and that's probably, at the end of the day, probably one of the most important things. One other thing he did mention is that Election Day, all Palm Tran fares are going to be waived. All rides are going to be free on Election Day. So that's a good thing. Last thing I want to mention is the Education Advisory Board. Excuse me. We had our October meeting on the 3rd. Cypress Trails Elementary School Principal Bruce Salter presented an overview for the school year. He talked about a couple of things. One is a new pilot program that they have with Lion Country Safari. A lot of our schools, in fact, I think each one of our schools, has a relationship, a partnership with one business or another in our community, and I think it's great. The Lion Country Safari is very creative, but so is Cypress Trails. So they offer their participation in these pilot programs so as to bring kids and try out different approaches to learning about animals, biology, and that type of thing. So one of the things he mentioned falls under the heading of a did you know. Cypress Trails Elementary School is the only Title I elementary school in Palm Beach County to be A-rated for the last 5 years. So we've got some outstanding schools, and the last thing I'll mention is that volunteering is back, and all of the principals are excited about anybody who wants to volunteer to help in whatever interest areas they might have. That completes my report.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say is get out and vote on Tuesday, November 8th, and decide whether you want the bond, not the bond, the teacher pay, and a lot of other a lot of other races are on the ballot. It's very important to get out and vote. That's it. Thank you.
Actually, and yes, her name was Hareen Burdish, and her funeral was today. So she'll be extremely missed. She did a lot of community service throughout the whole county. So our prayers are out with her and Bob and the rest of their family. The Recreation Advisory Board meeting met. Many of our parks have been renovated or expanded. And actually, with that, you can pick up the latest issue of Royal Palm Magazine because they highlight all the changes over at Todd Robner Park. So it was really cool. It's a great spread that they did on that. So if you guys haven't seen that yet. Still to come, though, at Commons Park, they're going to do the automated bike rental, the pathway lighting, and the security cameras. At Veterans Park, they're working on replacing the playscape. So that's a great old unit out there. The youth and adult teams are looking for people to register for them, so they were all in full force, and you can register for many of the programs and the athletic programs we have out there. We have 18 senior programs in the village, and 12 of them are free. So definitely check out those if you're there. We have the Elton John Tribute Band tomorrow, Friday the 21st, over at Commons Park with the food trucks. And Green Market's back, so on Saturdays, you can head out right outside here of Village Hall from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. We have Veterans Day that we're celebrating over on November 11th at the Cultural Center, and that is with the American Legion Post 367 and Unit 367 Auxiliary. So there's a breakfast at 9 a.m. with a presentation beginning at 10 a.m., but you must RSVP for that because space is limited. So 561-790-5196, and you can go to royalpalmbeach.com to find these and everything else to register for that. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So YWCA in Palm Beach County has their work that they put out with it. So they have resources and help. It is ywcapbc.org. And their 24-hour crisis hotline is 561-640-9844 or 800-973-9922. And I remember we talked about it at their event that they did this morning at YWCA. But when we went into the pandemic and everyone went into lockdown in March of 2020, I remember Captain Nyack saying that PBSO expects an increase in domestic violence coming up because now everyone is secluded with themselves or in there. So it was interesting to see that they did see a huge rise in that. As Councilman Valentis did say, that voting is coming up. So early voting begins Monday, October 24th. And Election Day is on the 8th of November, so you can early vote. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And considering the presentation that we just had, on November 1st, the Women's Chamber of Commerce is actually doing a lunch and learn with Superintendent Mike Burke, with Jonathan Brown from Housing, and Mayor Chelsea Reed is talking about transportation. So that's on womenschamber.biz, and that's all three combined in one. And that completes my report.
Okay, thank you. Ray.
The only report I have is this past week we did fill the position of public information specialist. It was an in-house promotion. Our payroll clerk got that job. She will be working with the town crier on that magazine. She'll be working on the Village Voice. We'll be working on all our other publications and getting stuff out on Twitter and Facebook. And we are pleased to have her on.
Good.
I thought that Councilwoman Samios was auditioning for the job there for a minute.
I coached her. She's good.
But the
position
position
is
is
filled.
filled. And you're going to be seeing a lot of this stuff out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
No? Oh, okay. That's good. All right, that concludes our reports for this evening. What we'd like to do now is, anyone has a petition to present to the council? Now would be the time to do that. Seeing none, I'm closing the floor into petitions this evening. Now we're going to go to statements from the public. And I do have comment cards here for items not on the agenda. So we always provide that opportunity. And with that, we'll start out with Adam David Lind. Come on down, sir.
My name is David Lynn. I am the president and CEO of Lynn Company. I've been hired by Brian Tuttle to be the developer of both the Main Street and Tuttle Apartments.
So he put you up to this?
We bring Brian for everything, and it's pretty easy. So
Okay.
it seems to stick on him. So, but anyways, no, I am. Our company is located in Texas. I was actually born here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and my family still remains out here. We do a ton of business here in the state of Florida. We've done about 14,000 units in the state, all the way from Jacksonville and the Panhandle all the way down to Miami, including building a high-rise in Miami and building Brian's Tuttle Apartments, Tuttle Royale, near Main Street. Wanted to just come and talk about the fact, as an outsider, I travel all over the country. We do business in 17 states and about 60 different metros. And we're here to talk about the Main Street project today and the timing of the approval process there. Mm-hmm. You guys have a really amazing site over there at Brian's in your area here. That's very, very unique and very, very special site. I do this business all over the country, and when I met Brian, I did tell him this is one of the finest development sites I've seen in the country. And you guys have worked with him to create a very special center there giving him the zoning and the things like that needed in order to effectuate that. We're really excited about the project. You'd have to live under a rock not to know that the economy and things out there with that and whatnot are getting very challenging. And so I think we're here tonight to just talk about Brian's development and the timing of it and asks that I think he's going to make of the council today. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we have Anthony Tertulli. I messed up that name, right?
Yeah, a lot of eyes, T's. Don't make fun of the Italian stuff. Come on.
Okay.
Anthony Tertulli.
Thank you.
I am here tonight too, at the invitation of Brian Tuttle and the Main Street project. I am the president of development at the Lind Company, and we're based in San Antonio, Texas. I handle all new construction and development for David Lind and his family. We were asked to join Brian's team and help him on the 401 multifamily units that we're delivering. We're getting started on hopefully here within the next 30 days. We've faced some tremendously challenging times right now in the construction world. You've heard about supply chain, you've heard about all of it. And having been in this business for 30 years, we sit around conference tables all the time, and there's guys with grayer hair than me, and we all say to each other, no one has seen this before, right? The economy is and for the last 2 years, it's been a wild ride, to say the least. We have the expertise at Lind to help Brian's vision and dream and what you guys have put together for him, allowed him to put on his property. We have that expertise. I'm not saying this to be arrogant or bragging, but the Lind organization closes between $50 to $100 million a month in transactions around the country, new construction and acquisitions. We have the capabilities to handle something of the magnitude of Main Street, which is Class A trophy property. You don't find these every day. This is something really, really special. Even the apartment building, we do build those every day, literally every day. We negotiate $100 million construction contracts. Anthony Nasco here is one of our boots on the ground, handles it. We're in thousands of hours on these projects. So, and having been in thousands of hours with Brian Tuttle, he told me you guys didn't get to see any other faces besides his. So that's why we also wanted to come here.
He told you that? Really?
To let you know that the Lind organization is behind this in a major way. And we have the resources to see it through. Our job is not overly fun. The upfront is, but we're the execution guys. First guy's on, last guy's off. We have the team, the capability, and David and his family and the resources from the rest of the team. I think Brian's done a tremendous job putting this package together, and I hope you guys can understand what David just mentioned, that urgency piece. Days, they always matter in construction, but right now, things can turn on a dime. This is a project, and we've both been through a lot of cycles. Got some gray hair. This one will weather. We're fine. We believe in it, and it's the long haul, and it's the long vision, and our team will be there for that. Just wanted to let you know who's behind Brian. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Okay. Grab last name? I can't make out the first name the way it's written. Yeah, that would be him. Good. Thank you. That's okay. I am too, but
So that's kind of a problem. My name is Kevin O'Grady. I am a managing director and partner in Concord Summit Capital. So I'm the finance guy. And I've been doing advisory work for third-party developers and value-add operators like David Lind really since 2012. And since that time, I found my niche. I've closed over $25 billion worth of construction loans on the debt and equity side. And previous to that, I worked for public companies in large tract development. So I carved out a niche in urban and suburban large tract development. And you've heard this from two previous speakers, but I can tell you that in my career, I'm not $25 billion worth. This is probably one of the top 3 sites I've had the pleasure of working on. It's just an absolutely phenomenal site.
what makes it phenomenal?
Well, number one is it's on Southern Boulevard in Palm Beach.
The location.
Location, location, location.
Right.
You know, and really the 3 things that really drive success for real estate is really, capital, marketing, and now it used to be those two, and it's jurisdictional approvals. And the more dense things become, the more challenged it becomes to get through the gauntlet of getting approvals. But I firmly believe that this is a project that's really needed for the area, and only evidenced by the next speakers who will speak to the retail development aspect of this. And I haven't seen in my career the kind of interest from what we call AAA tenancy for retail ever on a project. And what happens with these guys, and that's a really difficult business that these fellows are in, because retailers are really, really tough to deal with. And one of the main aspects of that is that you have to start and hit a window for their delivery, and they have a tendency to negotiate leases where they're clustered because they're interdependent upon each other. So the timeline that Brian is asking you to look at with regard to, approvals really is driven a lot by these tenants and hitting their window that he needs to hit it. The second part of this is, as David mentioned, we're in a really choppy financial market right now. And I've never seen any, I've seen a lot of them because I'm a little, I'm long in the tooth. But the fact of the matter is there's so much demand out there. It's not that demand went away, and there's so much capital out there. It's now the cost of the capital and the underwriting requirements. And right now we still have money available to finance this. We'll be closing on the Tunnel House, the 400 units here, in the next 30 days. And we already have capital lined up for the Royale project. So I would urge you all to consider, an expedited approval and allow him to get moving, in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask, Mr. Mayor, may I
Go ahead.
ask?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
Mr.
We have a
O'Grady, may I
question.
ask you a question? You sure may. Before you answer that, though, it's unrelated to what you were just talking about. But you've already answered, so now you have to. Did you hear Mr. Miller's presentation?
Yes, I
regarding
did.
the bond? And since you're the finance guy and they're asking from developers, what are your thoughts on that, real quick?
Well, the major problem you have for affordable housing is the cost of land, and material costs. So somebody has to step in and take the place of the private sector with regard to balancing things out. Now, I'm not getting in the way of his honor, but
No, and that's why I asked you the question separately. So.
but I applaud the efforts of the county and the jurisdiction to try to do something, because it's becoming a real problem. Not only do we have infrastructure problems here with regard to supporting all the people that are moving down here, but now we also have a problem with where are the worker bees going to work. I mean, down in Miami, we're importing people, they're coming in from Homestead, they're 2-hour commutes, there's only, 1 or 2 north-south connecting routes going in. So you have to find these kind of communities, and it's a nice segue, you have to find these communities which we call experiential real estate, where everything's kind of like self-contained. Now, we're probably not going to have more affordable units on this site, but it doesn't mean that there can't be one right next door. So I like bonds. I like to work with bonds that are provided and bond districts that are provided with the support of the county. And I found them to be very successful in moving projects along that heretofore would not get done.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Okay, Ryan Hallahan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Ryan Hallahan, and I have over 25 years of commercial real estate experience in both Chicago and in Florida. For the past, for 14 years, I led City Place, now Rosemary Square in downtown West Palm Beach. I'm here tonight to talk about, I joined Brian's team because of my experiences and the ability to make certain that we were going to be developing a world-class destination center in Palm Beach County. And what we were attempting to do is make certain that we were not going to make the certain mistakes that certain developers seem to make over and over again, not having enough parking, not having enough lighting, not having enough amenities. To make certain that we're focused on all of those issues, we're creating a Disney-like experience, and we've painstakingly gone through all the details to make sure that that doesn't happen. Going back to my experiences at City Place, there's building blocks that you have to get these projects off the ground. At City Place, you had to make sure that you could get Macy's to come in, and then you build from there to get Cheesecake Factory, and to get the movie theater, to get AMC, and all of that builds. I'll use an analogy. I may not look that old, but I'm old enough that when I used to go to my grandmother's house, I would use Lincoln logs. If anybody remembers what those are. And the foundation.
I've been told about them.
The foundation basically are those tenants, and you have to have that foundation, and they have co-tenancy clauses. It's industry standard that these tenants will not come if they do not have these other tenants. Sure. They come in clusters, they come together, and they have a lease that says that I don't have to open if we don't do that. I've also had the opportunity to work with many of the most successful restaurateurs in all of Florida, from Orlando down here. And there's one common theme that they've told me that's a mistake that they'll never make again, which is opening in the summertime. The problem is that the amount of time that it takes, the capital dollars, the ability, you can range from having 20% of your sales in the month of December to 8% during the summer months.
So when is the best time? You're going to tell me
Best
December.
time to open would be September, October, so you can get the house, so you can get the staffing and work from there. That would be the best.
In a perfect world,
in a perfect world, that is correct. So the partnership that you have built with Brian has been amazing, and he's done a tremendous job of telling these tenants that not only is he the partner in this project, that the village is also his partner in the project. So I'm here today to implore you that time kills deals, and time can kill projects. So I'm here today to talk about that we really need to expedite this process, so we're not looking at trying to open a project that would open in the middle of the summertime, which probably would not happen. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for the insights. Boy, you just got it under the wire with that one, huh? Okay. Warren, I think it's Warren Dalba Newmark.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My name is Warren Dalba with Newmark. We're the brokerage firm charged with bringing the store. If you're not familiar with Newmark, we're a global leader in commercial real estate with 170 offices around the world and over $3 billion in annual revenue. Over 25 years of the business, my teammates and I have leased over 20 ground-up developments across the country, including Disney Springs in Orlando, Time Warner Center in New York, and, as Ryan was saying, the original City Place here in downtown West Palm. We pride ourselves in empowering every phase of the property life cycle and have been working hand in glove with Brian and his team for the past 4 years on executing the city's vision for this innovative world-class neighborhood. To know Brian is to understand his dream of not just building a great mixed-use project, but transforming Royal Palm living by pushing the limits of how we imagine today's urban lifestyle through cutting-edge public spaces and nonstop community events. We see our role as working with the city to propel Royal Palm forward with an inclusive, family-friendly, tech-forward community. We're striving to create unique arts and cultural experiences with an unrivaled commitment to job creation and family wellness through integrated fitness and sustainable design. In short, this is the best site and most exciting development we have ever worked on. As Ryan was saying, in commercial real estate, we live by the adage that time kills deals. Brian has spent the better part of 10 years laying the groundwork for over 450,000 feet of best-in-class retail tenants in every major category. In putting the tenant mix together, we know that maximum productivity for everything from the preschool to a comedy club really depends on the co-tenants that are around them. In other words, having the right neighbors means bringing more of your core customer traffic and is the key ingredient to accretive sales and long-term success. To be clear, Brian has already signed letters of intent with a critical mass of best-in-class national tenants, and is with these national brands in place that we can finance the development and provide traffic patterns for all the smaller boutiques and restaurants to succeed through unique product lines and superior customer service. So here we are in October 2022. We have leased through the pandemic and soaring construction costs and now rising interest rates, but outside forces have not deterred our team. The only thing that can derail us now is time. In today's retail world, there are a few new developments and none with the excitement and promise of Tuttle Royale. Through the merits of this incredible site and Brian's unbridled enthusiasm, we've already won store opening slots with nearly 200,000 square feet of the best national tenants. These are mostly large public companies that are very selective about when and where to dedicate limited resources. Bottom line, if we do not start hard construction the next 4 or 5 months, it will become clear to the tenant community that we can't deliver their spaces in spring 2024. At that point, a number of tenants take their limited store opening slots to projects that have already started construction and are certain to open on their dedicated timeline. Real estate is a business of credibility and trust. We've leveraged 30 years of favorable business relationships on the notion that we will be delivering on time. I myself spent 20 years working downtown West Palm trying to convince residents of the western suburbs to spend their retail dollars downtown. Tuttle Royale is the job that will reverse that pattern and bring those dollars home to our community. This is not to say that we can't build down the road in some other limited form, but this is our window to execute on building the greatest mixed-use development in the country. Unfortunately, these desirable national brands all run in a pack. Once we start to lose a couple, it can unravel quickly. The retailers have validated the site. All we need to do now is deliver on time. Therefore, it is with all due respect to the commission and the mayor that we do whatever it takes to stay close to that schedule. This is the best site we've ever seen. In our view, it would be unfortunate not to see it reach its full potential. Thank you for your consideration.
Just a question for you. Now, your timeline is when? When do you want to open your doors?
We would like to, well, we really need to. We have to open in the fall of 2024. So to do that,
All right, so the
need
like
to deliver,
September time frame.
Yeah, so the tenants typically need 180 days to build out their space from the
Right.
time that we deliver.
So
the
you're
store.
back in 6 months from there.
Right. So spring 2024 is when
Okay.
we need to hand the keys to the tenants so they can open in fall 2024.
Okay.
So these big companies, they've already given us that slot, right? So if we don't deliver at that time, you run the risk of them just going somewhere else.
Listen,
Store openings are a lot less.
a couple of key points you made, and I've
Sure.
learned over the years from a business standpoint, timing is everything. You could have a good plan, you could have a good product, right? But if it's not the right time, it won't be successful. It could be a great idea. And I understand, believe me, we all understand the pressures involved in creating developments, especially retail, and timing. All right, but thank you.
Thank you.
for
This is
your
an
comments.
incredible jigsaw puzzle.
No, we-
and we have that window.
We
can
understand
make this
that.
happen.
I just want to impress upon all of you so far before we introduce Mr. Tuttle.
Yeah, no, it's coming.
I want to impress upon you that we are all very much aware of these issues that you've brought to our attention. And we have and will continue to work as diligently as we can to facilitate the timelines that we're talking about. But we've been talking with Brian about timelines since the very beginning, all right? And we'll go forward. We won't talk about the past. At some point, I'm going to ask my village manager to, after Brian makes his comments, to kind of walk us through, because we have been working, and his staff has been working with dates and when things have to be done. And I have some other thoughts I'll share with Brian. Come on up, Brian. Thank you so much. Go ahead. Question. Hold on. Got a question.
I just had a question because both you gentlemen have had experience with the City Place endeavor, which I thought, I moved not too long before. I think that whole thing came online, and I wanted to know what your thought was as a comparison between City Place and what we're looking at over at Tuttle Royale, because City Place, to me, which when it started, I thought was, a great thing, but obviously it didn't go as planned. I mean, I saw the Macy's get teared down. A lot of the things you're saying about national tenants and all those things, saw them all go away. I don't even know, is that bowling alley still there anymore? They made the bowling alley, that's gone. Right. So instead of, we could get all these wonderful tenants to begin with, do we want that? Do we want it? We need it. But what's going to keep them here as opposed to, because they had all the national tenants and everything going for them in downtown West Palm, but I don't know if is it a location aspect of it, or has the, industry changed so much? Because that's just something I was thinking of.
Sure. No, I'd like Ryan to speak to this as well. Okay. But what I would say is that what City Place lacked was the critical mass. So we could talk about specific tenants, but they all have to come together, right? City Place, so we had a smattering of retail, but we didn't have all the key national brands that you need, right? We had some good restaurants, but not all the ones that you would have.
And the movie theater was fabulous. I mean, probably still is.
That's right. So what Brian's put together here is a project on a scale which we have the ability to bring in all those key national tenants. So it's a big difference, and but if we don't deliver on that and we start to lose some, that's the unfortunate thing, and that's what we're faced with today. We need to get going.
Any other questions, comments?
Oh,
He was going to.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just
add, that's
if
fine.
It's okay. Yeah, if it's all right. Yeah, I think that if you look at it, the City Place project at the time that it was developed was essentially a pioneer project. At that time, I mean, I started my career in regional shopping centers in Joliet, Illinois. So it was the model was very different at that time. You had the Gardens Mall, you had Boca Raton Mall. So those were the stellar markets that everybody wanted to go to. So the evolution, what City Place over the years, there was modifications, and I think one of the biggest challenges that unfortunately came was the outlet mall. So as retail was continuing to modify and change over the years, what happened is you had 1 million square feet of retail outlets open 3.5 miles to the north. So that, coupled with many other changes in the economy and COVID and things like that, and also to answer the kind of a question very very bluntly, if they were to redesign it in certain ways, how many of you have gone to City Place and had to wait quite a while to get out of the parking garage? So there are different challenges when it comes from design, accessibility, the ability to be able to get in and out of a project, and a lot of aspects that go along with that, that can create challenges for those tenants that are in that market.
But I think
Thank you
also-
so much.
Sure.
It's kind of like almost you're going to add a little Old Orchard into it also, though, if you want your strip mall area. The other, but I think what it's also important is because you have 10-year leases on your industries. So you have to look at when those places started moving out after that time period. So they just didn't renew. So they were in there for their 10 years, but they didn't re-up for another 10.
Yeah, and to answer the question about just the demand, to echo what Warren was saying, in that, yes, I've been in the business for 25 years, and you are told how well that your project is going to be based upon the interest that you have in your project. And I've never seen interest like this. I never have. I've leased projects, been part of projects in Chicago. I've been at City Place in West Palm Beach down here. The amount of interest, because whatever you're doing is you're essentially filling a void in Palm Beach County. You have the northern Palm Beach County, you have the southern Palm Beach County, and what they see is the largest, busiest intersection in Florida, 166,000 cars on Southern Boulevard, another 70,000 on 441, and everybody in the tenants say, that's amazing. I've never seen anything like that. So again, location, 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 I believe, is what will sustain success.
Thank you. Come on down, Mr. Tuttle.
And now, we've been waiting for it.
Just relax. Couple of things. One, for 10 years, I started buying land there. And for 8 years, you've looked at this ugly mug, and we've worked through every conceivable problem there was to land that wasn't in the village. We had to conduct a vote to get it in the village. Then we had to figure out what we were going to do, and then we got it all rezoned. And then 3 years ago, I came to you and I said, look, zoning's done. The commercial center, it's not going to fly. And I asked you, I said, the only way I can make it fly is if you give me residential over the retail, if you remember that. That's what kicked this off 3 years ago. And that's because these are the groups that I talked to, and they told me I can't get it done. We all know if I'm going to be successful, I have to surround myself by the best in the industry. And in my opinion, they're the best in the industry. And they're the best in the industry because 2 reasons. Number one is I think that we're all pretty good judge of character and we can judge them. But number two, other clients prove that they're the best in the industry. If Disney World hires Newmark Knight to do their centers over every other broker in America, I'm going to trust Disney's decision, right? I'm going to go with it, right? If I know 7 billionaires in Florida, I'm not one of them. And in fact, most of their assistants make more money than I do. But they use that guy right there to raise money. That guy, he raises money for all those guys. All of them come to him to raise money. And And he saw my project in one of the newspapers, and he drove up on a Saturday and says, I want to meet you out there. And he goes, I can't believe this. I want to help you build it. And I'm like, okay. And so then I checked him out, and I'm like, holy mackerel, you know, Art Falcone, who are all the different big guys? Related Group, all these guys, he helps them find money. So here's the bottom line. I'm not here to tell you anything, because this Main Street is beyond my capabilities. Let's understand our own rules, right? I'm not a guy that can do it. I can maybe manage a team, but it's beyond my scope. They're telling me if we don't get a certain construction schedule, they can't get it done. So the one thing I know since we've been around so long, how much do you love that MX project on Southern that never got built? Right? It hasn't been built to this day. And we don't want that, right? We need to build it. They're saying they can get it built. They're saying they can get it financed. I have the leases in my hands. Can't sign them yet. Because if I sign them and don't deliver, I'm done. So what we ask is simple. Instead of saying to your staff, Brian's on the same schedule as the city mattress who wants a sign variation to have a bigger M. I need a special schedule. I need special treatment. We need it. Now you're going to say, why would we give you special treatment? Because then other developers are going to come in and ask.
No. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to ask you this question. Where are you with getting the requirements for your comp plan completed? You have to go through a county review process and an FDOT process. I've seen these processes over the years, and that could short circuit you like you wouldn't believe. So you gotta get a focus on, to get the comp plan done. You got to get your comments back, all right, and requirements back from the county and from FDOT. We have no control over that.
We have
there's no speeding around that.
We're on our third set of comments, and they're clerical comments, and we're told we'll have our TPS letter in 2 to 3 weeks.
Your Honor, can you dual track these?
Well,
I'm
let
going
me
to,
finish.
yeah, hold a sec. Yeah.
So all we're saying is we're bringing a world-class project here, and
you're speaking to the choir. We get that.
I know.
That's no. You don't need to keep pounding that at us.
1,000 jobs.
We're trying to get you to understand that some of these processes, especially the ones that we have no control over. Listen, I've seen projects, die because they couldn't get through their comp plan process with the county and with FDOT. And they're going to give you things that they want you to do, and they're going to throw numbers at you that you're going to have to spend, and then you're going to have to go back. That's a process that each time. Now, Ray's been working on a schedule. He's going to go over the schedule with you. We're not going to sit here and do it tonight, but we are getting with you to go in detail over that schedule.
All I'm saying is...
let me finish. Bro.
Okay.
And where we can dual track, the term you use, we will work on that. We're not going to sit here and just single stream everything, but we're trying to impress upon you is these are some, you're telling us a date you're going to get these things back. It's not going to be that simple, Brian. They're going to send comments to you. You're not going to agree and want to spend the money that they want you to spend, all right? I've seen this too many times over the years. So I'm just sharing that with you.
Listen, understand.
We're on the same page. We want to see this project succeed. We want to see the world-class tenants there. It's not like we're sitting back going, well, that's not important. We recognize that, and we recognize that's what's going to make this a special place within the village of Royal Palm Beach.
All right, and so I'm telling you I'll have TPS in 3 weeks. But I'm also telling you, as the commission, you can schedule special meetings. You can special P&Zs. You can allow Ray to give me 1 week TSRs. In the code, it says you can ask for a 1 week TSR. You can ask for a special TSR meeting. All I'm saying is, and I'm not saying it anymore, they're telling me that they can guarantee we can build it if we can get going in early next year. If the schedule I saw, we can't build the project. So that's all I'm here to tell you. It means I can't build it
I hear.
Can't get the
I hear.
tenants.
I hear you. And
So
we're working.
I'm telling you, man to man, where I'm at.
And we're working. And we're going to sit down with you and walk you through the schedule. Ray, you want to make any comments?
I can make a few.
Please do.
Sure.
Thank you, Brian.
This is a great piece of property, and it is a great location, and Brian made that happen. It wasn't that way 10 years ago when he first started looking at this piece of property. It was a combination of anywhere from an acre to maybe a 10-acre site. They're very difficult to put together, and he did it, and he owns all the property. And he's committed with hiring all you to make this thing work. And we've been committed. We've been committed the last 8 years we've been dealing with him in TSR. We have done numerous extra TSRs. We have done numerous quick reviews on his project, and we are committed to do that going forward. Each one of the professionals that are sitting here, do you know the status of the project today? There's no comprehensive plan, land use on the project. There's no zoning on the project, and there are no approvals on the Pod 6 commercial project. I've heard that you need from 30 days to 5 months to get all them in place and start construction. Someone sitting there telling me somewhere where you've gotten up to 10 public hearings. I think that's about what's needed. It might be 8 on this to get this to that point. 8 public hearings from comp plan, and we don't even have the zoning on our books to review this project yet. So we have to do 2 public hearings for the zoning to create it and put it on our books. Then we're going to deal with this project by putting a land use on it, 2 public hearings, zoning on it, 2 public hearings, special exceptions, variances if necessary, according to Brian, site plan, preliminary plat, final plats, and all that. Has any of you done that in 30 days? Anywhere in the country, in the world? The answer is no. Have any of you done it in 5 months? Any of you? You have? Okay. Damn. Because I was going to say,
well, that's Maryland. I mean,
we can do it in. What I was going to say is we can do it in 5 months. That's not a problem. As long as the comments are taken seriously, the resubmittals are accurate, consistent, and complete, that can happen. This project can happen. That's what we need. Correct. That's what we need. We put a schedule together that meets the law. And when the mayor was talking about the comp plan, that's really, as all of you know in Florida, the comp plan is the biggest thing. And Brian being 2 to 3 weeks away from getting a letter from the county, that's really, really good. Because that is the main service that needs to pass. And I know the state's gotten a lot better with that. County's still working to get better. To have that in place says that this project's not going to be stopped and people are going to agree to it. He still has a long ways to go with getting water and sewer approvals and designs and all that stuff. But he'll work hard
Wellington,
on that.
that's Wellington.
He'll work hard on that. I know he will. We can do it in 5 months. We're going to need diligence, accuracy, completeness, and do it with the quality you talked about delivering through the process of getting the public hearings and getting this approved.
Not me saying it. When we look at the construction schedule, 5 months doesn't work.
Well, you know what? You need me to talk to some of these potential tenants? I'd be glad to.
I understand.
I'm serious.
Mr. Mayor, Brian, would you mind coming to the mic?
I'm not saying that we won't build the project. I'm saying I can guarantee it today if I can break ground and get my site plan. Because once I get site plan, I can do underground, I can do utilities. Wellington, I met with the utilities director. She has promised to walk the application through and turn it around with a permit in 60 days.
Okay.
Because
60 days?
From when I submit.
Okay.
She wants her $5 million impact feature.
And you're going to get hit up with that. Well, you know what's going to happen there, but
So we'll meet tomorrow. We'll talk
Yeah,
the
we
schedule.
are, yeah.
I just wanted to tell you that this has now grown beyond me. All right, I just, I may still pull some strings, but it's more than I can do.
I think you've lined up and expressed a very special, talented group of the professionals here, and that's what is part of what's going to take to reach the finish line and for us to be successful.
And then the last point is I wanted you to see, instead of always just seeing me, I wanted you to see the faces. These guys are real. Google them. They're like real dudes,
Real dudes. Is that a technical term?
Did you want something, Richard?
Is it okay if I ask a question? It's funny because Brian remembers it all the time because I bring it up probably every time I see him about the horrible mixed-use experience next to my house, which going about 17 years now that it's still not done. So I'm very sensitive to these things. And when I hear this compressed timeline, of course, it gives me pause as being a councilman up here. But if everything is so tight, a real concern is, knock wood, I hope I'm not jinxing anything. What if we get an Ian? Does that mean everything's now gone? Because if your timeline is so narrow that even a tropical storm can knock it out by 2 or 3 months because of whatever damages we get to an infrastructure. And again, thank God it's been, in my opinion, since Wilma we had anything that was substantial. But I mean, is that something that's going to kill the grade A project that we all want?
And that's a great question. And my lawyers have answered that one, not me. What all the leases include
is an act of God,
are
hopefully.
Act of God
Okay,
extensions.
good.
There, if you make your best efforts.
People call you God.
Oh, that's not. No.
Thank you, Brian. No, that was my question. I
but
appreciate it.
See, I want to be so. Once I sign the lease and I start, and let's say materials don't get here and we can't build it, that cheesecake, that improv, that LA Fitness, that Tommy Bahama, that Victoria, they're committed. They can't get out.
Yeah.
Once I start.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? No? No break. We got to push on. No break.
And that wasn't even on the agenda.
No. Okay. Moving right along.
Thank you.
Wait, you're not staying for the rest?
We got kids to feed.
We're taking a 30-second recess.
Okay.
Go ahead. All right, we'll make it a 2-minute recess. Go. That's okay. Yeah, it's.
But hey, we're up here working, so
All right.
ever want to just ask us to
All right. Okay, we're going to, before we start the consent agenda, we're back in session.
Okay.
Bradford, you're up already? No.
No.
Okay. You just want to stretch your legs?
He's leaning forward.
Okay. I do have a comment card for an item on a consent agenda. So, Mr. Jacob Humphrey, will you please come up now? Okay. Did I say it wrong? Hampu? I'm sorry. My bad.
Thank you all for your time. My name is Jacob Hampu. I'm a retired Marine Corps combat veteran and founder and executive director of Unified Dream. We're a nonprofit located here in Royal Palm that helps veterans overcome the obstacles of reintegration. It's been an honor to run a nonprofit here in this wonderful village. It's been an honor to be a guest speaker at a memorial event a couple of years ago. That it was truly touching, and I want to say that every year I attend because you guys go above and beyond memorializing our fallen warriors. It's been an honor to be on the cover of Royal Palm magazine for our work with the community. It's been an honor to establish such a strong relationship with the village and with Parks and Recs. Over the years, we've been able to help with numerous events here in the village, whether it's holiday events, but we also attended many of the Feeding South Florida. We've established a strong relationship, and I hope we can continue to do so. We have an event on November 12th, Veterans Day weekend, called Unified Veterans. It's a disc golf tournament and honoring of local veterans for their service to the community. We plan on honoring a male and a female veteran for their support to the community. We want to do it correctly because these warriors have not only gone above and beyond for their country, but now go above and beyond for their community. So we would like to use the Great Lawn. We would like to have tents and tables and chairs to accommodate over 200 people. I'm well aware that there is a cost, and I'm happy to pay that, of course. I just ask that because the event falls within Veterans Day weekend, and our organization coincides with veteran-related issues, that maybe there was a possibility of a discount or some type of waiver. And I would also love to possibly partner up with the village for this event. I understand that November 12th is right around the corner. We've tried to get me in here a little earlier. Unfortunately, the timing didn't work out. And like you said, Mayor, timing is everything. But I'm still going to fight for my cause for our veterans because we love your park. We have a program called Florida Veterans Disc Golf, to where we utilize Commons Park to teach the game to veterans every Friday. Why disc golf? It's rather cheap, and it provides veterans a chance to get out in nature and stay active. Any way that we can provide them a safe and healthy environment is what's our goal. And last but not least, the new Commons Park North Side course, which is wonderful. Thank you all. It doesn't have short pads for the beginners. So I would like to propose that we possibly get new cement pads put in for the short or beginner pads at that course.
I'm not following you. What do you mean pads, short pads?
Like tee boxes. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Tee boxes, just like, and when you go up.
This is on the range you're talking about?
The north side of the disc golf course. They
This
don't
is
have
for disc?
Yeah,
Okay.
disc golf. He's saying
Okay.
that they don't have cement pads. Basically, I'm not a golfer. T-ball. At least I understand what he's talking about because I've seen the ones on the south side.
Have a conversation with our Parks Director, Lou Recchio, about that idea, and see what we can do about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you finished?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you and commend you for the service you are doing for our veterans. We really need everything that we can do for our veterans is very important. And we are having an event on Veterans Day to honor our veterans. But in terms of let me put the context. What we're doing is we are giving you an opportunity to use public space, all right? Which means it's got to be open to the public. I always tell people Commons Park belongs to the citizens, right? We just manage it for them. And we have many, many, many requests throughout the year with different nonprofits, organizations who are doing very worthy things and trying to make a contribution to the community. But our policies, if we begin opening up and providing discounts or waiving fees completely, everybody would be lined up and it would be untenable, all right? Because now we're put in the position of, well, I'm going to pick you and not pick them. And we don't want to, that's not the way we run the village, and it's contrary to our policy from a fiscal standpoint. So I have to say to you, pay the fee and do your program, and any other things that Lou Vecchio and his team can do in terms of supporting that so it's a successful day, they will do that.
Yes, sir. Understood.
But thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Keep up the good work. Thank you. Question?
In meeting with all of you on this project and looking at what is on the agenda here, this corporate pavilions, the corporate pavilions are something that, if approved tonight, and then we get them built, would be kind of an ideal facility for somebody like him to rent. So in him looking at all our different facilities and what we have, he was only left with the Great Lawn. I think in the future he would be renting one of those pavilions.
Okay.
His event is only using half the Great Lawn, and as we've explained to him, we can't deviate from the Schedule A of fees that we have. Right. But if the council wanted to direct us to add a new fee to the Schedule A that would be half the Great Lawn, we could do that, because I do think once those pavilions are built, then we would modify it back, because we wouldn't need that if that's what the council wanted to consider. And we can still be consistent with our rules and regulations.
Good.
And my thought is, I mean, to me, again, sir, I appreciate your service, is, not something to be done on the fly, but, and I don't know if it would be legal, that'd be something to clear for, but, if we do have veterans groups, and I'm pretty sure I've heard from everyone in Jan here, we do want to support veterans and veterans causes, maybe having a different fee schedule for nonprofit veteran organizations. Again, I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if that's something, but I think that's something maybe we might want to discuss at our strategic planning session, just to throw that out there, because as you said, you're out doing good in the community, and that's what we need. And if that's something, we can legally and, justifiable, because I agree completely with what the mayor was saying, but just might be something I think is worth talking about.
Did you want to comment, Keith? Oh, okay. Put you on the spot, huh? No, did you? No? You had a comment?
The only thing I think, in addition, when you had said about what Lou can do, I believe we talked about that making the course available just to you and not to the public during the beginning time that you need, so that your group can stay together. So at least it'll alleviate other disc golf players coming through to help with the event itself.
Yeah. It would be for that duration, your program, your operation that's doing that.
Yeah.
Yes. Ray, in terms of the point you made, get us something follow up on what we need, what you need from us in terms of moving with that concept that you mentioned.
Well, what I would need from council is an agreement by the majority of the council to establish a new rate for half the Great Lawn. Right now, we rent the entire Great Lawn out. Like I said, his application is part of
So
the
you want that?
backup,
You
and
want that tonight?
And looking at that, if I could get that direction
Okay.
tonight, we could establish that fee.
Is there a consensus?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one comment. Sorry for the interruption. Mr. Hamera has a voting conflict on this one, so if you could address that once he's recused himself and left that consensus, that would, I think, be more appropriate for,
Oh, you know
him.
what?
It's going to get pulled, so I think you
forgot
have the
about that.
time to
Yeah,
discuss it.
You want to
So,
recuse
yeah,
yourself now?
I was going to wait until we got the consent
Okay.
agenda, but as this conversation's evolving, I feel like I need
So
to
we won't comment on that until he does his-
identify the fact
Okay.
that I do have a conflict.
So do we have to have the agenda read first?
You can do that if you want to pause your discussion on that consensus for the village manager and then take that back
Take
up
it back
once
up? Okay.
once Mr. Hamera is off the dais.
Okay, so where are we?
Okay, so with that,
We're going to consent agenda, and
Yes.
I'll pull item number 4.
but she has to read it first, right?
Okay.
She has to read it to the
Yeah,
record.
forgot
So
about that.
Diane,
Go.
give us the consent agenda.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Number 1, approval of the minutes of the first public budget hearing of September 8th, 2022. Final public budget hearing of September 15th, 2022, and council regular meeting of September 15th, 2022. 2, approval and authorization to renew annual software licensing and technical maintenance support with Superion Public Sector Incorporated in the amount of $66,500. 3, approval and authorization for the mayor to execute the 2023 municipal election vote processing equipment use and election services agreement by and between the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections Office and the Village of Royal Palm Beach. 4, approval of a special event permit for Unified Dream to hold a disc golf tournament and honoring celebration on the Great Lawn at Commons Park on Saturday, November 12, 2022. 5, approval and authorization for the village manager to execute the second addendum to agreement for general planning and development review services to extend the professional services agreement with Urbana LLC for the second and final one-year renewal term beginning November 22nd, 2022 and ending November 21st, 2023. 6, approval and authorization for the village manager to enter into an agreement with Haverland AG Innovations Incorporated, formerly known as Stowe Landscape Services Incorporated, for annual turf maintenance services at the Cats Soccer Complex at a cost not to exceed $64,236, and by piggybacking the Village of North Palm Beach term contract by Resolution 2019-51, which is currently in effect through October 1st, 2023. This item is budgeted in account 001-7200-572-3490. 7, approval and authorization in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 302 in the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Said amendment to transfer a total of $1,150,000 from undesignated fund balance to Corporate Picnic Pavilion, PR 2105. 8, approval of a bid award in the amount of $2,246,296 and authorization for the village manager to execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for the Corporate Picnic Pavilions, PR 2105, PR 2308, to All Site Construction Incorporated. 9, approval and authorization in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 408 in the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Said amendment to transfer a total of $75,000 from undesignated fund balance to street sweeper PW 2303. 10, approval and authorization to purchase one Johnston 5006 compact sweeper from Pat's Pump and Blower in amount not to exceed $273,155 by piggybacking the Florida Sheriff's Association Cooperative Purchasing Contract FSA 20-EQU 18.0 specification number 384. 11, requesting ratification of the emergency purchase of a van from Duval Ford in the amount of $59,394 by piggybacking the Florida Sheriff's Association Cooperative Purchasing Program. Funding source is from CIP Project PW22TR truck replacement.
Okay.
So, if I may, if the council is interested in proceeding with the discussion regarding the half of the field fee, my suggestion would be at this time to amend the consent agenda to add number 12 to direct the village manager to amend the fee schedule to add a 50% fee for use of 50% of the field.
Okay. So
Mr. Hamera would not have a voting conflict to amend the fee
I was
schedule.
going to say that because
Then
it's a
you
generic
can-
decision.
That's why I suggest adding that to the consent agenda. You can then move the
Alright.
consent agenda without number 4. Mr. Hamera will be recused from that, and then you can deal with the actual special event.
All right, so how do we do that?
I'd make a motion to add item number 12 to the consent agenda, which would involve creating a 50% fee for an applicant who wants to rent the Great Lawn. So instead of the 50% of the Great Lawn, so they'll be entitled to half, and they will pay half.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's now part of the consent agenda. So
so-
now you can move the consent agenda without number 4, which has been pulled.
Right. So now you have to make your approval.
Okay, so polling number 4, the special event permit, discussion with Unified Dream and the event that was just discussed. My conflict is that I am a member of the board of directors of that nonprofit organization. And so with that, I recuse myself and I will step out of the room.
Okay. Don't go too far away.
Actually, I'd like to pull number 7 too, please.
Number
before you
7?
make- Yeah.
Okay, so technically we're pulling 7 and we're technically pulling 12 because we're going to talk about it, right? Or do we have to talk about it? We could just leave, it's on the agenda, we could just let it be approved.
Right now, you're pulling 7 and 4.
pulling
If
4.
you approve
7
the
and 4.
consent agenda, that would be approved.
That would be approved. Okay. So we got 7 and we got 4. Okay, is there a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda with the exceptions of 4 and 7, Selena?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that it was a 3-0 vote to approve the consent agenda, minus item 7 and 4. Okay, who wants to talk about item 4?
I'll bring it up then. And just for the record, though, we do have a nonprofit rate, so the fee was a nonprofit rate versus the
yeah.
for-profit. So I just wanted to clear that it
would
wasn't.
be 50% of the nonprofit rate, if they're a
Correct.
nonprofit.
Well, correct. So it'd be 50% of either one, but I just wanted it stated that there was a reduced rate to begin with from that. So to the point of if we can now talk about, I guess the agenda item was requesting not a fee permit, but what we can do is have a revised schedule of fees so that 50% of, or discount, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think I just want to, so what you're saying is
Yeah.
you're saying that since we, via the consent agenda, we've approved the staff to come up with a 50% fee schedule for half use of the field, that we would apply it immediately
To this one,
project.
correct, and a nonprofit and a for-profit rate, so it'd be 50 on either
All
side.
right. So do we have to have a special motion on
Well, I
that?
think the motion would be to approve consent agenda item number 4 and apply the new 50%
Say
fee
that it will
schedule.
be, it'll be eligible for the new,
Yes.
okay. So could I get a motion on that?
Okay, motion to approve our consent agenda item number 4 with the newly created 50% off rate for using 50% of the Great Lawn as created by consent agenda item 12.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that the amended item 4 was approved 3-0. And Mr. Aren't you glad you came tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, agenda item number 7.
And actually the village manager can ask this question then, because I believe when we originally talked about adding the 2 pavilions, we had applied for a grant
Yes.
with the state.
Yep.
Did we, so this, the 1.15 is it half the budget or is it the full amount because we did not get the grant?
That is the full budget. The prices came in considerably higher.
Well, they went up like
Right,
everything
right,
else.
With everything, right.
Yeah.
And I did text Chris to ask him if we have any grants on this whatsoever. I didn't get a response from him, so maybe I'm sure he's listening, so he can tell us whether there's, and his mic's on, so he can tell us whether
Is he
we have
raising
any,
his hand?
any
He doesn't
grants-
want to answer.
grants or not. So Chris, do we have any grants on this project?
We do not.
Okay.
The grant was vetoed.
Okay. It was vetoed. It got to the veto stage.
So then,
It was a line item veto by
Yeah.
the governor, right?
Right.
Okay.
so I just wanted to make sure that we're using, I believe we said sales tax money for this. So this is not coming out of our capital budget. This isn't coming out of our other projects. This is additional money that we've received that we can use for this project.
We are proposing that we use the sales tax money to
tax
fund
money.
the second pavilion. That is correct. The first pavilion is being funded with the ARPA money.
Right.
And we're proposing the second one be funded with sales tax.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you. That's why I just wanted to
So
clarify.
it's still kind of OPM.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that consent agenda item number 7 was approved 4-0. Okay. That completes the consent agenda. And now we're going to move to the regular agenda. Find the right page. Be nice. Be nice. Come on. Be nice. Okay. Regular agenda item number 1 is a public hearing to consider application 22-100. An application by Cutler and Herring in resolution 22-28 confirming the council's action. The applicant is seeking site plan modifications and architectural approval to construct approximate 5.77 acre recreation public park with multiple disciplinary athletic courts, open space, 4 outdoor pavilions, a restroom facility, playground for a property located at 900 Crestwood Boulevard. So with that, Bradford, you're on.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Bradford, before you begin, if I could swear you in and the applicant as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a quasi-judicial.
Thank you, sir. Do
Yes.
you both swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll ask for ex parte disclosures from the council at this time.
Village manager.
Thank you.
Okay, great. The applicant is seeking a site plan modification and architectural approval for a 5.77 acre recreation site for a property located at 900 Crestwood Boulevard. The proposed site plan includes multidisciplinary athletic courts, basketball, pickleball, tennis, and volleyball, open space, 4 outdoor pavilions, a restroom facility, and a playground. So as you can see, this is where the playground will be, your volleyball courts, your 2 tennis courts, and your 2 basketball courts with your associated parking and a multi-purpose field. The applicant is also... Is it pickleball? Oh, excuse me. Oh.
Gotta have pickleball.
Oh, yeah, sure is. The applicant is also seeking architectural approval for various buildings and landscaping. This slide shows landscaping for the site. Much of the perimeter landscaping was installed as part of the Belisara subdivision. Here's a architecture feature, and this is the restroom. Overall, the site, the proposed site plan modification and architectural approval is in conformance with the village's requirements for these types of recreation public parks and consistent with the requirements of the single-family RS3 zoning district, particularly as it pertains to parcel size, parcel width, setbacks, pervious area, parking requirements, landscape areas, and maximum building height. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of application 22-100. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this application on September 27th, 2022, and recommended approval by a vote of 4-0. And with that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Okay. Does the applicant want to make comments?
We have a presentation.
Oh.
The applicant has a presentation.
Oh, wait, we're the applicant?
This would be us.
Well,
So-
representing us as the applicant.
Which is the up and down? All right, that's great.
I mean, Bradford's was good.
I just don't have the production
How you doing, Don? Good to see you again.
Very, very good. For the record, Donaldson Hearing here tonight on behalf of Cutler and Hearing, here representing the village, and really exciting projects. We're really looking forward to presenting you a few of the other details that we worked through. You're aware of the location, right, on the north side of Crestwood, west of Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, and
immediately west and contiguous to the M1 canal, and then the Bellicera community, which is located immediately to the north and to the west of the project. Bradford went over the two requests that we have for you, but I'll get right into the details. So the site plan is represented in context to the surrounding community. And when we set out to start working on this project, we spent a lot of time with your staff, with your village engineer, with your parks department, and we really analyzed a number of things. We looked at other neighborhood parks throughout the area and within the Village of Royal Palm Beach. We looked at the design of the subdivision, Bellicera, and how it was laid out, and I'll note a few things there for you. And we really focused on trying to come up with a program that would meet the community needs of Bellicera as well as the surrounding communities, and would be most respectful from a site planning perspective to the adjacent neighbors, which is something that we do. One of the things that it's important to note that first, this particular parcel, as pointed out in the staff report, was actually a requirement to meet the recreation requirements for Bellicera. So 5.77 acres. So the resolution 1534 required it to be dedicated to the city. But there was a very clear intention by the master developer when you look at the plan to make sure that it was that the subdivision itself was sited in a way that it would be respectful of the future park that would be developed, because it would be a community park. So you'll note that the lots that actually sit up against the park to the west are just beautiful. They're some of the deepest lots in all of the community that are there. I've got a slide that will show you some of those setbacks, but really the closest home to the property boundary is 50 feet. And then to the north that you see there's a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac was terminated. You don't have homes that front onto the park. You have a side relationship, and they have a relationship. So that really helped us in evaluating and considering how we would design the park. And then in addition to that, the original developer was required to install a 25-foot buffer. The village allowed that buffer to be installed on the park that was being dedicated, but they were required to install the buffer, and it's my understanding that they've been maintaining the buffer up until this date. That maintenance obligation may change in the future, but right now they have been maintaining that particular area. And I'll show you a few more things, but you can see just visually when you look at this slide that the more intensive, and I don't even really want to use the word intensive, but the sports courts that could potentially have some noise are located as far away from the residential area as possible, and the more passive uses are located closer to the residents themselves. So here's the plan. Bradford went over it, but it's a really very exciting plan for the village and the community. You have other community parks like La Mancha, which have not similar programs, but not all of these. And in fact, in La Mancha, which has been a very, very successful park, you just recently added more parking and done some upgrades. A number of the sports courts are actually closer to the residents than what we're proposing here. But a couple of the elements are parking, located all the way down on Crestwood, close to the street, as far away as possible. Sports courts located to the east, so there's 2 tennis, 2 pickleball, and 2 basketball courts. Those courts will be lit, so we are utilizing very energy and lighting efficient fixtures from a company called Musco. They're experts, so 100% downlit, no spillage of light off the property. So just a very, there are other technologies that aren't as sensitive from a photometric perspective. Throughout the rest of the park, we will have security lighting, but it's relatively low lighting, really intended to provide for security. In addition to the sports courts, we have a sand volleyball court, which is up to the southeast. We have a number of pavilions. There's 4 pavilions plus restroom facilities, which make it nice. A lot of times community neighborhood parks like this don't have the restroom facilities, but this really will enable if you're having a picnic, you're having a birthday party, or you have a neighborhood sports tennis match. You have the ability to utilize the facilities. And then we have a number of open air pavilions. So, and they're spaced throughout the park so that we can have multiple families could be utilizing those pavilions at one time. So just pointing out where those are so that you could see them. Again, another pavilion up in here, and then another pavilion down in the lower right. So a lot of opportunity, and I think that they'll be used by all the residents. The larger green area here, this is a multi-purpose open play area. It's not designed as a structured soccer field. It's not designed as a baseball field. Those types of recreational organized sports will occur somewhere else in your other many beautiful parks, but not here. So this would really just be for open play. It gives a lot of multi-purpose opportunities to the residents. We have over on the M1 canal, we have the opportunity for residents to be able to get down and actually have a little bit closer contact with the water. There's no access to the water. There's no boat parking there, but you could walk along a boardwalk along the edge, and that's ADA accessible. So, we think that that'll be a great benefit to the community. This larger trail to the west and to the north, is an existing emergency fire access that was required by way of the development order for Bellicera to be constructed. It also serves as a pedestrian access. That is only available for emergency access. We share the access point for the purposes of access to the parking area, but we have emergency access that would have Knox boxes on it for the fire department to be able to utilize that area to get into the neighborhood. So we think that this is a great park. You have the ability to walk. You have the ability to have multiple functions occurring at one time to serve the needs of your family, and it's been very well thought out. We looked at probably 10 or 15 different concepts with your staff so that we could come up with what was the absolute best. And it really has that, and a wonderful playground facility for all ages. So that's the park that's there today. These are the restrooms facilities, so which is nice to have, nicely designed. Landscape's very nice, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more because I know that there has been some concerns about the adjacent residents. I think predominantly over the issue of potential noise, but it's important to note, I show this line because it shows you the platted boundaries from the property appraiser's office. So these boundaries show you where the backyards are, and you can see how far set back these homes are compared to the majority of the homes within the community have a much closer setback to the rear property. And then on the north, these have a side orientation. But there's an additional 20-foot HOA parcel before you get to the 25-foot landscape buffer tract that's actually on the park itself. And I'll show you some of those distances and some photographs of what that looks like. So here, just kind of giving you some of those distance. The closest setback is 50 feet, which is good. Then there's a 25-foot buffer, and then the distance to really where the sports courts are, or even the playground area is another 370 feet from the property boundary. So it's about 400 feet from the homes, just showing that we really were trying to be very, very sensitive in the way that the park was laid out. From the north, very, very similar approach there. It's a side, they don't have backyards that are looking into the area, but 150 feet to the sports courts and about 75 feet to the volleyball, so at least close to 100 feet away to really any type of structured activity. There is landscaping out there today. I think the master developer did a good job. There are some materials in those areas that could be let to grow larger. So there's some clusia There's some, which I'll show you some pictures of. It's basically maintained now at about a 6-foot height. Could easily go to an 8 or a 10-foot height if that's what the residents desired. The same thing with some of the stoppers and the cocoa plum. So we have some potential. The whole area adjacent to Bellicera does also contain a chain link fence. So there's an existing fence there. So one opportunity would also be very simple. The vinyl slats that you can put within a fence to provide visual security, and then allowing that landscape to grow larger. So those are some opportunities that you have. This is the western boundary, so you can see the homes that are there. And we just showed this to you. We certainly respect the neighbors wanting to be concerned, but hopefully they can understand with this presentation that we actually spent a lot of time trying to be very sensitive to where each of the homes are. These are some of the landscape buffers that exist. There are a couple of areas where there are some holes where you don't necessarily have the clusia, but in most cases you have either the clusia hedge or a stopper hedge. The clusia is maintained pretty much right at the top of the fence line today. It could go higher. The stopper's a foot or so below that, and it could also go higher. Or you could choose to supplement that alone, but that was originally a developer-required buffer as a part of their obligation when they built and sold the subdivision. And that's that view. You could also note that there's a very good separation even to the multi-purpose field, even to the property line. So we've really tried to be very sensitive there. A couple others. So here.
Sorry, real quick. So with your expertise then, the hedges that are there now, are they at 6 feet right now?
You can see
Is that right? Is that
that's right
so
around
that's
a 6
feet,
foot.
that's
That's right around a 6-foot height right there.
Because of the fence.
But it could be allowed to grow bigger. Here, the stopper hedge is a little bit lower. You can see that it's being very, very well maintained and manicured.
Right.
They could be allowed to go taller. Would help with noise as well as any visual.
Because I know we do allow 8 feet with our hedges, so I just want to make sure. But these could grow up to 8 feet, correct? Both of them.
The clusia would do that in 4 or 5 months.
Right.
So in the growing season. So it is something. That,
okay, I just want to make sure that both of those have the capability of doing that.
But you have options there on how you might want to deal with. Here's another picture that are there. There are a couple holes, so you could direct us to plug a hole if that's there. But this buffer will continue to grow. The trees will continue to mature. It's starting to do that now. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Would like to talk just quickly about schedule. We anticipate to complete the construction documents between now and the end of January. Bidding, construction, hopefully first quarter sometime in 2023 with completion either the end of 23 or early 24. So again, another great asset for a community that has known for having beautiful, beautiful parks. And just for the record, I love the concept of your corporate pavilions. They will be used a lot. There's not enough of those opportunities for us to do team building and stuff like that throughout the community. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'm going to go just back so I can get you back to the site plan so you can have time for any deliberation here. I'll leave it right here. There we go.
Before we take public comment, I do have one question. You mentioned there were holes to be plugged. We need to do that. Wouldn't you agree? Let's plug all the holes. No, we're going to be responsible for that, aren't we?
No, because I think right now, doesn't the property owner?
Well, again, the buffer was an obligation of the developer to provide the screening to ensure the neighbors were adequately protected. They did some of that in the site planning, which was deliberate. Trust me, the cul-de-sac, you could get two more lots in those cul-de-sacs if they had tried to maximize.
No, they did take that into account.
So they took it into consideration. It is a developer buffer. There's a couple holes in there that
Is their buffer even though it's on the inside of the fence to the park?
Yeah. Right. So as a benefit to the developer at the time, you allowed, by way of your development order, the buffer to be on your property as opposed to on their property. Again, you don't always do that, but in that case, you did.
Did you say that eventually, though, the maintenance of that would change?
I'd have to check the documents. My recollection is it'll stay with the developer, but
Well-
I'd have to verify that through the document.
But there's a, there's an opportunity to allow that to be enhanced.
I'd like to see if there are any holes filled in. I'm not necessarily worried about who's responsible.
That would be
but-
no problem to do.
I
Yeah,
agree.
To make it contiguously,
Yeah, and that way, I certainly would recommend that the 4-foot hedge be allowed to continue to
Let
grow.
it grow, yes,
And then
yes.
we could very easily go in and plug the other holes with some additional clusia. We are planting, some other vegetation in there. We're planting trees, but this is a open play area. We want to be able to have good grass, and so, we've been very strategic in how and where we've employed the landscape.
Okay.
Don, one more question before you go, real quick, regarding the roundabout. So that is not accessible per vehicle except for emergency, correct?
Yeah. So right at this exact point
Mhm.
where my cursor is, there are security gates with Knox box, which
Okay.
is required by the fire department. So no pedestrians can.
Right.
So because this is a pedestrian access to the community, nobody can pass that point.
Right.
Okay, and then there is an accessible gate at the end of that for the pedestrians, for residents to go in and out of pedestrian-wise, correct?
Yes,
It is
through the
currently-
chain
okay,
link fence.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Don?
We're going to do.
Yeah, we're going to do
public
public comment. Yeah.
All right.
You want to wait?
No.
All right, we'll hold our rest of our comments to after public comments. Diane, did we receive any advance public comments on this agenda item? Raised. Anyone got their hands raised?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I do have public comment cards that were submitted. I'm not sure if this is Darren or Doreen Garcia. They left? Wow, why'd they leave? Okay. Well, they had their chance.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that late.
Okay.
Football's on. Come on.
Yeah, a Prime Video. Yeah. Okay. Is it Luis Delgado?
Okay. Well,
Wow, they missed the presentations. I'll read their comment. One says sound barrier. I can't make this other word out, can you? This one says the same thing. Sound barrier. Berm.
yeah.
Berm.
So that fits with the emails that I think we all received.
Yeah, I saw
right?
some emails about the berm, but haven't seen the presentation. I think we're addressing the fundamental issue concern that they had there.
Well, actually, I comment on that.
Okay.
I think the whole idea about the berm was, solid turf acts more effectively as a sound barrier than do trees and bushes and things of that nature, just from a density point of view. And I think their point was, we've seen berms used other places to actually buffer sound, like between roads. And the one we have at Madison Green is an example of that, a berm right along Okeechobee Boulevard. Which works very effectively because, as I was mentioning to Ray when we were talking about this, Wyndham has the benefit of that. It's one of the villages in Madison Green.
Yeah.
If you go further west and you wind up in a Pinehurst village, which does not, and the difference is dramatic. I mean, you can really, really hear the road sounds and that kind of stuff. Now, having said that, of course, we're talking about a park, not the same.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the effectiveness of a berm is really, really substantial insofar as sound barriers are concerned. I think that's what they were asking for, was a consideration of actually placing a berm where that 25-foot or some portion of that 25-foot buffer currently exists.
Can you put that picture back up there so we can focus on what we're talking about? Yeah, this one. So what we're talking about a berm with the fence.
Right where the vegetation is right now, where the landscaping is right now.
A berm would have been a great idea if the master developer had put in the berm, right?
Got it.
So
That's what I was going to say.
That's you'd be looking at certainly north of $250,000,
Well-
maybe more, because you'd have to take out the landscaping that's there in order to facilitate a berm, because a berm really needs to be a 4-to-1 slope. So you can look at the distance. So in 12 feet, I can get up to 3 feet in 12 feet. So the 25, you could get to 3 feet if we looked the whole distance. So it'd be 25 feet for, in order to get a 3-foot berm. So, again, if it was something that the master developer had done, great. But in addition to the berm, you also have to drain the berm. So, the village can't put in a berm without then going in and putting in drainage to drain the berm. We have room on the north side where you could potentially do that, but we showed you from a site planning perspective that those homes have a totally different relationship that the ones on the back. And I certainly understand it, but the residents also, those are large backyards. They could also double up in landscaping just by putting along their chain link fence another hedge, which would really then act as a double buffer that's there. So that, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that you could use, including slats in the chain link fence, because that is also a barrier.
Is that something we could do? Put the slots in?
Well, it's a budget issue, but it's certainly a lot less expensive.
It's a lot less than trying
right.
to build
And they're vinyl today. It's not the old metal slats that used to get all bent up. They're vinyl slats.
Vinyl slats.
And that would help project noise in addition to the landscape.
Is it our fence?
It's the community's fence. It's
All
on their property line.
All right. So we'd have to get permission to put the slots in?
You would have to have the cooperation with the HOA. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And Don, before you go, quick question. Go ahead.
Good.
No, I just didn't want him to leave before you go. Go ahead.
Okay.
So we were talking about the berm on the west side. If you theoretically, if you did remove the foliage that's there, could you put a berm there between that and the road, the fence and the road, or is there enough room?
You would not have the ability to do anything significant because
on that west side,
a berm really needs to be to maintain it.
Right.
4-to-1. A 3-to-1 berm is difficult to mow. You take all the landscape out, but then there's still no way to drain it. So the water would be draining back into the resident's property.
They stuffed the berm in and they created a flooding problem.
And it is a
then they had to take it out.
So,
we'd be cautious. It would have been a great idea if the master developer did it, but they didn't. They chose not to do that. Instead, they wanted to give those lots bigger setbacks, which they did.
That's what I was going to say. That's what they did was they traded off to give the homeowners more
and those are tremendous backyards.
Right.
Right.
But that's why I was asking. So physically, you could not put a berm on that west side because then it rolls into the street, into that road. And you were correct, or you could.
You would have a lot of you wouldn't be able to get an effective height. So right. So at 3 feet.
Right.
3 feet. That's 12 feet one side, 12 feet the other, and a foot on the top is your full 25 feet.
Okay. So there isn't room there to do it on that side.
So then you need to drain it. You really need at least 4 or 5 feet for a swale, so you could put in yard drains and bring that back into the community. So we couldn't do anything that's meaningful. The more meaningful way would be to plug the holes and then also to let that hedge grow up to 12 feet, or 8 feet.
All right, so
the idea though of doing this, you call them slats on the
fence,
on the chain link fence. So sounds like something that, no pun intended, by the way, sounds like something that would actually act as a sound buffer. That would.
It certainly would deflect. It certainly would deflect.
So that would help. Did you mention that there was a park in La Mancha that has housing that's closer?
It's closer. It's on the opposite side of a little street.
Rob Reiner,
yeah.
Robner is closer?
Much closer.
But it doesn't seem like it, right? When you go
it doesn't. Because there's a road involved just about everywhere.
There's a road that surrounds it, but the road is only a 50-foot right-of-way, and there's a house like
so
right
actual
on the other
distance-wise, it's...
Yeah, this is a much bigger distance.
Interesting. All right.
So should we ask Ray for you to look into what needs to be done in terms of talking with the HOA if we want to pursue putting the slats in?
That's what the council wants us to do. Yes, we will do that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I think if we're doing that, I don't know. I don't know that all the residents would want the slats in their chain link fence.
That's the whole point.
I think it would be a conversation with the homeowners association.
With the HOA and
that wishes to have that we could accommodate that.
Our goal is to enhance the ability to provide more buffering in terms of sounds, and if that's a methodology that can work, given the construct of what we've designed already, it's worth looking into.
Matt,
Go ahead.
real quick, do we have anything that says that a resident could not put it up if it is like that, or is that an HOA question? Because if I'm one of those homeowners and I want it, can I put that in mind, but maybe my neighbor doesn't want it?
That's, yeah, but it's got,
That fence is owned by the homeowners association.
Right.
So it's gotta
and
be
I'm
an
sure they
HOA
will have full
process,
control
yeah.
over
Right.
Maintenance of it and what to do to it. So we would have to get with them and
get their approval.
And that's why I want clarification. Are you suggesting that we purchase the vinyl and put it in? Okay.
Oh, no, I'm suggesting
Oh,
as
yeah.
part of the project build out, we do that, but to do that, we need the approval of the HOA.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we would make it part of our project if they approve it.
Okay, if that's what they want. That's why I wanted to clarify
If
your
they
question.
agree,
is
yeah, if
that what
they
you're saying?
agree to that and say, yeah, they want to see that happen, then
We're willing to do it.
we put in the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is that enough direction?
yes.
All right.
Do we have to, Keith, include anything special in the motion on that?
Direct the manager to have conversation with the HOA
HOA,
regarding
okay.
the slats, and then there was discussion about plugging the holes.
And doing the plugging.
I think
Yeah.
that since
Yeah.
that's on
Is that the
village
right
property, we
terminology?
can just do
Plugging?
that.
Plugging the holes and
Include
allowing the
both
hedge
of
to
those
grow.
in your
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
And just for real quick, so if we put in the foliage in there to plug the holes or to make up for that space, because the HOA maintains it, will we also have that conversation? They need to maintain those if we put additional in that?
We-
Okay.
And
all
we
right.
will codify the rules, yeah. Okay?
Next thing you know.
No, it has to be agreed to up front and documented, so, or memorialized, as they say. So with that, who can craft a motion for this?
We look to our attorney. I mean, you know who we usually defer to, right?
Richard, you got it?
Were you paying attention?
Us. But yeah, give.
He wasn't paying attention.
I know there's the slats and the filling in the holes.
Well, I think all I was going to say is I make a motion to approve regular agenda item 1 with the addition of the village manager speaking with the HOA of additional soundproofing or barrier options.
With the slats and plugging the
Slats.
Correct.
And plugging the vegetation opening.
Okay, I think we got a motion. We have-
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Diane, please let the record show that regular agenda item number 1 is approved 4-0 as presented. Okay, regular item number 2 is a public hearing to consider application 22-95, an application by Enterprise Leasing Company of Florida, LLC, an adoption of resolution 22-27 confirming the council's action. The applicant is seeking a special exception to use approval to allow for an automotive rental agency to operate in a different tenant space, Bay 10231 Southern Boulevard, than previously approved 10381 Southern Boulevard, within the Village Shopping Center, and situated within the General Commercial Zoning District and located at 10231 Southern Boulevard. And this is also a quasi-judicial process, so we need to have folks sworn in.
Thank you, sir. Could you come to the podium and state your name for the record, sir? Thank you.
Michael Wood on behalf of Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Thank you. And the gentleman behind you?
Yes.
Adam Gearhart with Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Thank you. Can you both raise your right hands? Do you both swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll turn back to the council for ex parte disclosures.
Village manager.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you. In the interest of time, I will not repeat what you had mentioned, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go
We
with
know
that.
where the shopping center is, and this is simply taking the current Enterprise Rent-A-Car location and moving it to a new location within the center. So on this slide here, you see the current location in red that they'll be moving from, and the green is where they'll be moving to, with 10 fleet parking spaces in the rear that those arrows are pointing to, and there will be a car wash associated on the interior of this bay. In reviewing the proposed special exception use application, village staff considered compatibility with adjacent land uses, consistency with the village's comprehensive plan, and conformance with the village's development standards for the general commercial zoning district. Staff has determined that the proposed special exception conforms to the village standards. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this application on September 27th, 2022, and recommended approval by a vote of 4-0. With that being said, Mayor, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The applicant like to make comments?
No, we are here on a special exception, pretty
Okay.
straightforward, and we'll answer any questions that Mayor, you or other council members may
Well,
have.
am I correct in assuming that the fact that you're moving to a bigger space means that you're being successful?
It does, and we thank the village for the business.
Okay. Okay. All right, with that,
We're not the
Diane.
only client. So
Huh?
We're not the only client. So.
Yeah. Do we? No, I hope not. But we have any prior public comments on this agenda item? Great. Where did Ray go?
It's outside.
We have any raised hands? No? Okay. I don't have any public comments here, but if anyone here would like to comment, now would be the time. If there are none, then I'll close public comment on this agenda item R2. Comment from members of council. If none, I'll look for a motion.
I actually do, Mayor.
Okay.
Real quick. So is it a larger bay that you're moving to?
It is a bay that allows us to move the car wash inside.
Okay.
And take away the bucket wash that's outside, and, it's
Okay.
much more environmentally sensitive.
Gotcha.
That's part of their green initiative.
Thank you. And then is it still the same amount of spaces that you're utilizing out front with the vehicles? So you're not adding more vehicles out there?
We are not.
Okay. There was one other question I had for you. I can't think of it right now. How are your used cars, or how are you, I'm sorry, not used cars, how are your cars that you are receiving? Because there was a shortage of vehicles for a certain amount of time, so the fact that...
Still a shortage.
Okay.
And if you've rented from us recently, either through Enterprise, Alamo, or National, you might see the odometer looks a little different than it might have pre-COVID.
Right.
You'll get in a car with, 40 or 50,000 miles. But we're all having trouble. Everybody, Hertz, all the other rental car companies are having trouble getting vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
No other comments?
That,
Still-
I
still
make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R2 is approved 4-0. Good luck, gentlemen, and
Thank
thank
you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? I remember, my question is actually for
Too
Keith.
late. Go ahead.
No, it's for Keith. It's okay. It's not you. With this, though, because they are moving from one bay to the other, does that special exception for a rent-a-car stay with that bay, or does it travel with the tenant?
Should go with the use.
With Enterprise. So in other words, another car company can't come in there and
just
use
cut
that
it.
bay because there's a
That's,
special
that's,
exception.
that's correct.
Okay. That's
And
what I just
that
wanna
was
make sure.
that was
Okay.
really the purpose of this application
Okay.
is to show and to memorialize that movement of the special exception to the other bay.
Thank you.
Okay? We're good. Okay, regular agenda item number 3 is a public hearing for first reading and approval of application 22-25, an ordinance number 1031, an application by the School District of Palm Beach County regarding a text amendment to Chapter 20, Signs of the Village Code of Ordinances to amend Section 20-1 and 2057 to add a definition for the term school board informational sign and to allow for the school board informational signs on school board-owned properties with operating high schools as a matter of right within the public ownership district, subject to additional regulations. This, too, is a quasi-judicial process, and who needs to be sworn in?
Can you come to the podium, sir, and state your name for the record? Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Michael Owens.
Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll turn back to the council for ex parte disclosures.
Village manager and the principal a long time ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did talk to the principal a long time ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, just right after.
Hey, Bradford, you're on.
And Mr. Mayor, this is applicant driven. You do have, as part of your backup, the ordinance. I'll read it by title. I'm trying in good faith to cut down the agenda item summary blurbs because they've gotten a little lengthy for you. So I'll read it by title if you wouldn't mind. It's ordinance number 1031.
Thank you for that, Nettie.
You're welcome, sir. It's an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 20 signs At Article 1, in general, Section 20-1 definitions, to add a definition for the term school board informational sign. And at Article 4, permitted signs, Section 20-57, public ownership district, PO, or other village-owned property, to allow for school board informational signs on school board-owned properties with operating high schools as a matter of right within the public ownership PO district, subject to additional regulations, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 20 signs shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a severability clause, an authority to codify, providing an effective date and for other purposes. And as I said, this is applicant driven, so the ordinance reflects the application and the applicant can continue with his presentation.
Okay, thank you. You don't need to say anything? Okay. Applicant, you're on.
Thank you. Good evening. Actually, I didn't have much to say. I just wanted to thank the village and thank the village staff for the opportunity to work together so that we could replace the sign at the high school. It was a few months of going back and forth with regards to getting the right language. I think we hit a good chord, and just wanted to again say thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay. All right, I'll go look for public comments. Diane, was there any prior public comments submitted? Ray, any hands raised?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I don't have any public comment cards. Does anyone here would like to comment? Now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm closing the floor to public comments on agenda item R3. Comments from members on council. If there are no questions or comments, I'll look for a motion.
Actually, do you have anything? There we go. Looking at it, and I understand they're just asking for high school specifically. It seems kind of odd that you wouldn't have added all the other public schools as well. So is there an intent to come back with that?
Well, yeah, as you know, we do have 5 public schools here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. From the very outset in discussing this with their principal, it was made clear that we would only look for this to be for the high school and not all the schools in the village.
Okay.
So that's by specific.
Specific.
Right. And the way the language is written is if by chance we get another high school in the village, this language would support them if they wanted to put the digital.
Okay. So that's where I kind of, why not have it for the others? I understand, because I understand our signage concern that we have to begin with. My other part is there a limit on when the lights will be on? Because I didn't see that in here as well.
Ray, you want to comment on that?
We don't have a limit within the 24 hours, but we do have a limit on the flash. They can't flash or anything like that. It has to be a consistent message up for a number of seconds. I don't know how many that is, 15 or 20 or something like that. It can't flash. But since it was on Okeechobee Boulevard, we did not think it was necessary to turn it off at night.
And I will, if I could add to what he's saying, the applicant has provided additional regulations that apply. One is with location, one is with brightness, which says that it has to be dimmed to not exceed a brightness level of 0.3 foot candles above ambient light after sunset or before sunrise. So they have tried to put in place additional regulations to dim it.
Guidance in place, in other words.
Correct.
Okay, because I didn't see where it said, all right, turn it off at a certain hour. So
it's not
because
an
there are
on-off.
residents- Yeah.
Originally, they actually had proposed, they called it to turn it black. Yeah, and there was some ambiguity about what that actually meant. So this is actually more concrete and more enforceable to make sure that it's dim properly. Because it was as they explained it to us, it was a programming thing where they could turn it to black, which basically meant it was off.
Right.
But whether it was still displaying light was not clear. So this is actually putting in a quantifiable, measurable level.
And it is the brightness is consistent 24 hours a day. It's not where it will go at a certain, it will increase at certain times and decrease at others.
It'll decrease after sunset.
After sunset.
And before
okay,
sunrise.
So it is
Correct.
sunset to sunrise
Correct.
that it will decrease. Okay, that was my other question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, council? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve regular agenda item number 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that agenda item R3 was approved 4-0. Good luck. And how soon are you guys going to start working on this?
Well, now we got to raise the money for the sign, and then we have to come back with the.
But I thought your superintendent already said he was going to take care of it.
Yeah.
So
that was in the newspapers anyway. He didn't tell me that personally.
I mean, we'll see. I think obviously we're looking forward to working on and getting that campus sign replaced. So
okay.
As soon as we can.
Well, good luck with the project.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. Moving on. Agenda item R4. is approval of resolution number 22-30, confirming the council's action for the purpose of repealing resolution number 13-32 and replacing it with resolution number 22-30, which identifies certain village-owned properties for the placement of temporary non-commercial signs associated with definite event. Diane, they have you down for this.
I'm taking the heat on this one tonight, Mr. Mayor. This one is essentially a cleanup. If you remember, a month or so ago, you changed your sign code to deal
Yes.
with the language that no longer could be in the code regarding content-driven signs or content-based signage. So this is just repealing an old resolution that specifically referenced political campaign signage, also cleaning up an exhibit that is part of the village's election packet to
Okay.
make that language consistent with your new code.
Okay.
And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? No?
So this ordinance will allow me to put up a sign that says "Boo Selena Go Seminoles" before a University of Miami FSU game, right?
Off the record, yes, sir.
Who would want that, though? I don't understand.
Just saying. Just saying.
So I
That's
guess-
all.
I guess we know what Rich is contemplating.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll go
Well,
with that.
so along with Councilman Valentis's question, timing, because we have very specific time frames when signs can be there, so those will still be.
This
so
does
regard-
not change that, correct?
Okay, so then theoretically, we could have, right, well, no, you can't. I can't put up my U sign over Richard's Knowles sign because there's certain times of the year that you can put it up. So even though there are certain events that have, but if there is an event that runs at that time period,
But
you are
there's
having
a game
campaign
every
signs.
week, so you can leave it up every week.
But
This
you
is for
can't.
this week, and this is for next week, and this is for next week. They're all distinct events.
Yeah, but you can't
Go
because that's what I'm
Seminoles.
saying. So you can only advertise at those certain times that you have that we
think-
allow.
I think
And
you
this
guys
is
are
just
making this
village-owned
too
property.
personal. Really?
And just right.
This
Y'all
is
wanna
just speaking
take
to
this
the
outside?
village-owned property.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
No. That's what I wanted to clarify. So it is. So somebody's putting up all their stuff of here's my yard sale, here's my baby shower, here's my whatever. All of that can go up during.
That's
those certain
commercial,
times.
though. This is non-commercial, correct?
This
Vinny?
is specific to those that are associated with a definite event.
Event, yes.
Right. So as long as it's
Event
Oh, so it
specific.
can be a commercial event too? I thought
Yeah.
it was non-commercial. Okay.
no, it's you're right.
Okay,
Thank you.
it'll be interesting.
Okay.
Put it up.
Do Diane, do we have any comment, prior comments on this agenda item? Ray, does anyone have their hand raised? No, I'm not surprised at that, but no. I have no comment card submitted. Anyone here would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we're going to close public comments then on agenda item R4. No more comments from members on council. I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve regular agenda item R4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show agenda item R4 was approved 4-0. Agenda item R5 is an appointment of two residents to the Recreation Advisory Board, and that would be you. Yes.
So we did have two of our members resign for their family. So we did have two came to apply back again, and I'm thrilled that we have a repeat offender. So somebody came back in that, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint alternate Alyssa Freeman to a regular seat with her term expiring March of 2023. I'd like to appoint Robert Birch to a regular seat with his term expiring March of 2023. And I'd like to appoint Sean Fitzpatrick as the alternate seat with his term expiring March of 2024.
All right. Do I need a second for that?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for the appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Diane, please let the record show that the appointments recommended were approved 4-0. Item number R6 is an appointment of one resident to the Education Advisory Board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Kathleen Greer to a regular seat with a term to expire March 2023. She's a retired school teacher and also an Army officer. So
Okay.
look forward to having her on the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Let the record show, Diane, that the appointment for the Education Advisory Board was approved 4-0. See no other business before this council this evening. We are adjourned. Thank you all.